A father comes home to find armed strangers in his house with his daughter hiding upstairs. But they're not there to rob him. They're looking for evidence his dead ex-girlfriend hid years ago, evidence that could destroy a $1 billion criminal empire. And his 6-year-old daughter. She's not just any child. She's the key to everything. If you want to know how a single blizzard night turned a quiet single dad into the last line of defense against killers who've already murdered once, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The windshield wipers couldn't keep up. Adrian Cole leaned forward in the driver's seat, squinting through the white chaos that had swallowed Lakeshore Drive whole. February in Chicago was always brutal, but this storm had come out of nowhere. Weather Channel said light flurries, maybe an inch by midnight. Instead, the city was getting buried under what looked like 2 feet of angry lake-effect snow, and it wasn't even 8 o'clock yet. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. He ignored it, both hands on the wheel, eyes tracking the faint red glow of taillights somewhere ahead in the blizzard. The Honda's tires slipped, caught, slipped again. Adrian eased off the gas and felt his jaw tighten. Emma. His daughter's face flickered through his mind. Gap-toothed smile, dark curls that never stayed in the ponytail Megan tried to wrangle them into. Those serious brown eyes that looked way too old for a 6-year-old sometimes. She'd be in her pajamas by now, probably arguing about bedtime, definitely asking Megan for one more story. The phone buzzed again. Not now, Adrian muttered. Traffic crawled. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The meeting had run late. Of course it had. Marcus Chen, his supervisor at the risk assessment firm, loved the sound of his own voice, loved keeping everyone trapped in conference rooms while he pontificated about strategic pivots and operational synergies. Adrian had stopped listening around hour 2, his mind drifting back to Emma, to the promise he'd made that morning. Daddy, you'll be home for dinner, right? I'll try, sweetheart. You always say try. She wasn't wrong. The Honda fishtailed slightly as he took the exit toward Lincoln Park. Adrian corrected, muscle memory from too many Chicago winters taking over. The neighborhoods here were old money and new money pretending to be old money, brick brownstones with heated driveways, Range Rovers parked under porticos, the kind of place where people had nannies and house managers and didn't worry about overtime or late meetings. Adrian worried about both, constantly. The house he rented, not owned, a distinction his mother never let him forget, sat at the end of a tree-lined street that looked like a Christmas card 9 months out of the year. Tonight it looked like the opening scene of a horror movie. Snow piled against parked cars, streetlights casting weird shadows through the sideways wind, not another soul visible anywhere. He pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. Silence. Just the tick of cooling metal and the muffled howl of wind. Adrian sat there for a moment, letting the tension drain from his shoulders. Home. Finally. He'd apologize to Emma, read her 2 stories instead of 1, maybe let her stay up an extra 15 minutes if she promised not to tell Megan. He grabbed his messenger bag from the passenger seat, pushed open the door, and stepped into the storm. The cold hit him like a physical thing. Not just cold, but violent. The kind of wind that found every gap in your coat and reminded you that nature didn't care about your commute or your daughter's bedtime. Adrian ducked his head and trudged toward the front steps, snow crunching under his dress shoes. That's when he saw them. Footprints. Not his. Not leading to the door, but around the house, cutting a deliberate path through the snow along the side fence, disappearing toward the back. Adrian stopped. His brain did that thing it always did. The thing that had made him good at risk assessment. The thing that had probably saved his life more than once back before Emma, back when he'd been someone different. He didn't panic. He observed. Fresh prints, maybe 30 minutes old, judging by how much new snow had filled them in. Boot treads, size 11 or 12. Heavy. A man, probably. Walking with purpose, not wandering. Megan wouldn't have gone outside in this, and she wouldn't have had visitors. Adrian's hand went to his pocket, fingers brushing his phone. He should call 911. He should absolutely call 911. Instead, he moved toward the front door. It was unlocked. He always locked it. Always. Megan knew that. It was the first thing he'd told her when she started working for him 8 months ago. Lock the door behind me every time, even if I'm just going to the car. She'd nodded, serious, promised she would. Megan never forgot things like that. Adrian's pulse kicked up, but his hand stayed steady as he pushed the door open slowly, silently. The hinges didn't creak. He'd fixed that back in November after Emma complained it sounded like a scary movie. Warm air spilled out. The hallway was dark except for the faint glow from the kitchen nightlight, the one shaped like a crescent moon that Emma insisted they keep on because it made the shadows friendlier. No sounds. No movement. "Megan?" Adrian's voice came out quiet, controlled. Nothing. He stepped inside, easing the door shut behind him. His dress shoes were too loud on the hardwood. He should take them off. He should... A hand grabbed his arm. Adrian spun, every muscle coiling, his body remembering things his mind had tried to forget. But it was just Megan. Blonde hair pulled back, face pale in the dim light, finger pressed to her lips in a desperate shushing gesture. She was shaking. "There are people upstairs," she whispered, barely audible. "Two of them. I heard them talking." Adrian's world tilted sideways. "Where's Emma?" "Her room. I told her to hide in the closet. She thinks..." Megan's voice caught. "She thinks it's a game. Hide and seek. I told her the snow monster was coming and she needed to hide really, really well." Something cold and sharp settled in Adrian's chest. Not panic. Worse. Focus. "You called the police?" "My phone's upstairs. I was doing laundry when they came in through the back. I barely made it down here before they went into your bedroom. Adrian, I'm so sorry. I locked the door. I swear I locked..." "It's okay." He squeezed her shoulder once, firm. "It's okay. Go out the front door. Go to the Stevens house next door and call 911. Tell them home invasion, child in danger. Can you do that?" Megan nodded, tears on her cheeks now. "Good. Go. Quiet as you can." She slipped past him, grabbed her coat from the hook by the door, and was gone into the blizzard without another word. The door clicked shut behind her with a sound like a coffin closing. Adrian stood alone in the dark hallway of his own house, listening. There, above him. Footsteps. Not trying to be quiet anymore. Someone was moving through his bedroom, opening drawers, shifting furniture. Not thieves, he thought. Thieves would have grabbed the TV and run. These people are looking for something specific. His mind raced through possibilities. He wasn't rich. The house was a rental. His car was 8 years old. His bank account was respectable, but not remarkable. He didn't have enemies. He'd spent the last 6 years being the most boring, reliable, predictable version of himself possible because that's what Emma needed. No drama, no danger, just dad jokes and bedtime stories and parent-teacher conferences. So why were armed men searching his bedroom while his daughter hid in a closet 20 feet away, clutching her stuffed rabbit and thinking it was all a game? Adrian moved toward the stairs. He knew every creaking board, every loose nail. He'd learned them all in the first month after moving in, back when Emma was barely one and would wake up at the slightest sound. He climbed now in perfect silence, a ghost in his own home, each step placed with surgical precision. The second-floor hallway stretched ahead of him. Emma's room on the left, his bedroom on the right, the bathroom at the far end. Light spilled from his open bedroom door, throwing angular shadows across the carpet. A voice drifted out. Male, calm. "Nothing in the dresser. Try the closet again." "I already tried the closet." A second voice, younger, impatient. Maybe she was lying. Maybe it's not here. She wasn't lying. She wouldn't have told us about this place if it wasn't real. Adrian's blood went cold. He moved closer to Emma's door, testing the handle with agonizing slowness. Unlocked. Thank God. He slipped inside, closing it behind him with the faintest click. The room was dark except for her nightlight, a projection of stars that rotated slowly across the ceiling, something he'd bought her after she'd said she was scared of the dark. Her bed was empty, covers thrown back, toys scattered across the floor. And there, in the corner, the closet door slightly ajar. Adrian crossed to it and knelt down. "Emma?" he whispered. "Sweetheart, it's Daddy." A small sound from inside. Then her face appeared in the crack, eyes wide, finger to her lips just like Megan had done. "We're hiding from the snow monster," she whispered back very seriously. Megan said I have to be really, really quiet or he'll find me. Adrian's heart broke and reformed in the space of a single breath. You're doing perfect, he whispered. The very best hiding I've ever seen. But I need you to stay here a little bit longer, okay? Can you do that for me? She nodded, then held up her rabbit. A threadbare thing she'd had since she was 2. One ear half chewed off, both button eyes hanging by threads. Hoppy's scared. Tell Hoppy that Daddy's going to make sure everything's okay, and when I come back, we'll all have hot chocolate, the kind with the little marshmallows. Her eyes lit up. The rainbow ones? The rainbow ones. Okay. She pulled back into the closet, disappearing into the shadows like she'd never been there at all. Adrian stood, turned toward the door, and heard the footsteps in the hallway. They were coming out of his bedroom, 2 sets, heavy boots on carpet, moving toward Emma's room. His mind went blank white for half a second. Not fear, something else, something older. Then training kicked in, muscle memory from another life, and Adrian was moving before conscious thought caught up. He yanked open Emma's door and stepped into the hallway. 2 men stood there, maybe 15 feet away, both tall, both wearing dark tactical clothing that looked too professional to be anything but government issue. The older one had gray at his temples and the kind of weathered face that came from too many years doing work that aged you fast. The younger one couldn't have been more than 25, nervous energy radiating off him like heat. They both had guns, not drawn, just visible, holstered at their hips, a reminder of who controlled this situation. The older man's eyes tracked Adrian with the empty efficiency of someone running a threat assessment. Then his posture shifted slightly, not relaxed, but no longer coiled to strike. Mr. Cole, he said quietly, we're not here to hurt you or your daughter, but we need to talk. Adrian didn't move. You broke into my house. We knocked. No one answered. So you broke in. The back door lock is easier to bypass than explaining this to local PD. The man's voice was flat, matter of fact. My name is Agent Thomas Garrett. This is Agent Kevin Ross. We're with the FBI, Financial Crimes Division. He pulled out a badge. It looked real. Then again, Adrian had seen good fakes before. Financial crimes, Adrian repeated slowly. I'm a risk analyst for an insurance firm. I assess flood damage and commercial liability. What exactly do you think I've done? Nothing. Garrett put the badge away. This isn't about you. It's about Vivian Sterling. The name hit Adrian like a fist to the solar plexus. He hadn't heard it spoken out loud in 4 years. Hadn't let himself think about her in longer than that. Vivian Sterling, the woman who'd walked into his life like a hurricane and left the same way, taking pieces of him he'd never managed to reassemble. Vivian's dead, Adrian said flatly. Yes. Car accident, June 2020. Very tragic. But Garrett's expression didn't change. What you might not know is that in the 6 months before her death, Ms. Sterling was building a case against a criminal organization that had infiltrated her company's supply chain. Money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy to commit fraud across multiple continents. Billions of dollars moving through shell companies, all of it hidden inside legitimate shipping manifests. Adrian's lawyer brain, the one he'd let atrophy when he'd walked away from that life, started turning over. She never said anything. She couldn't. The people involved had already killed 2 whistleblowers. She knew if they suspected she was gathering evidence, she'd be next. Garrett paused. She was right. The younger agent, Ross, shifted his weight. The accident wasn't an accident, Mr. Cole. The brake lines were cut. Forensics confirmed it 3 years ago, but by then the case had gone cold. No hard drive, no evidence, no way to prosecute. Until now, Garrett added, we received information from a protected source that Vivian hid a backup drive before she died. Documentation of everything, names, account numbers, wire transfers, communications, enough to dismantle the entire operation. Adrian's mind was racing, trying to fit pieces together that didn't make sense. And you think I have it? We think she left it somewhere only you would find it. Why the hell would she do that? We hadn't spoken in years. Garrett's expression finally shifted, something almost like sympathy. Because you were the only person she trusted absolutely, he said quietly. And because Emma isn't just any child, Mr. Cole. Vivian Sterling is her biological mother. The floor dropped out. Adrian heard the words, understood them individually. but together they couldn't make sense. That's impossible, he said. Emma's mother died in childbirth. I adopted her through a private agency when she was 3 weeks old. I have the papers. I have papers that Vivian arranged, Garrett interrupted. Through lawyers, through intermediaries, through channels designed specifically to keep her name out of it. She gave birth to Emma in a private facility under an assumed name. She never held her, never saw her. She signed the adoption papers the day Emma was born and walked away. You're lying. I wish I was. Garrett pulled a folder from inside his jacket, held it out. This is everything. Birth records, DNA confirmation from the agency, legal documents with Vivian's signature. She chose you, Mr. Cole. Out of everyone in the world, she chose you to raise her daughter. Adrian didn't take the folder. Couldn't. His hands felt numb. Why? The word came out broken. Because she knew what was coming, Ross said. She knew they'd eventually find out what she was doing, knew they'd come for her. And she needed Emma somewhere safe, with someone who wouldn't ask questions, who wouldn't connect the dots back to her. Someone stable, someone good. Someone like Adrian Cole, the boring risk analyst who'd walked away from everything interesting and dangerous in his life because he didn't want to end up dead before 40. A sound from behind him, soft, confused. Daddy? Adrian spun around. Emma stood in her doorway. Hoppy clutched to her chest, her dark curls wild around her face. She looked so small in her princess pajamas, so impossibly fragile, and all Adrian could see was Vivian. The eyes. How had he never noticed? Those serious, too-old eyes that sometimes watched him like they were calculating odds and outcomes. Vivian had looked at him the same way, back when they'd spent late nights arguing about philosophy and risk, and whether anything in life was truly random. The snow monster's gone, Emma whispered, walking toward him on bare feet. I heard talking, so I thought it was safe. Adrian knelt down, caught her, pulled her close. She was warm and real, and his, biology be damned. It's okay, baby, he managed. Everything's okay. Over her head, he met Garrett's eyes. Where? Adrian said quietly. Where did she hide it? Garrett nodded slowly. According to our source, it's somewhere in this house. Somewhere that meant something to both of you. A place you'd eventually find, but no one else would think to look. Adrian's mind spun through memories he'd locked away years ago. Him and Vivian in this house. No, that didn't make sense. He'd only moved here 3 years ago, long after she was dead. Unless... His eyes went to Emma's room. To the small bookshelf against the far wall, the one he'd bought at an estate sale last year because it reminded him of something, but he couldn't remember what. Vivian had a bookshelf like that in her apartment. Dark wood, carved details, a hidden compartment behind the bottom shelf that she'd shown him once, laughing, saying it was for secrets and love letters. He'd never thought about it again, until now. Emma, he said gently, why don't you show these nice men your stuffed animal collection, the one on your shelf? She pulled back, confused. But you said strangers. They're not strangers, they're friends of someone I used to know. It's okay. Emma looked at Garrett and Ross with the serious suspicion only a 6-year-old could muster, then nodded. Okay, but they can't touch Hoppy. Hoppy doesn't like strangers. They won't touch Hoppy. She walked into her room. The agents followed. Adrian came last, his heart hammering against his ribs. The bookshelf sat exactly where he'd placed it, covered in Emma's things, picture books and stuffed animals, and a rock collection she'd started last summer. He knelt down, ran his hands along the bottom shelf. There, a seam in the wood, hidden unless you knew exactly where to press. He pressed. The panel clicked open. Inside, wrapped in waterproof plastic, was a small external hard drive. Garrett let out a breath. Jesus Christ, she actually did it. Adrian pulled it out, turned it over in his hands. It was heavier than it looked. This little piece of metal and circuits that had gotten Vivian killed, that had put Emma in danger before she was even born. What happens now? He asked. Now we... The sound came from downstairs. Not loud, just wrong. The back door opening, Garrett's hand went to his weapon. Ross moved to the window, peered out through the curtains. We've got company, Ross said, voice tight. 3 vehicles just pulled up, black SUVs, no markings. Shit. Garrett grabbed his radio. Control, this is Garrett. We have the package, but we're about to have a situation. How far out is our backup? Static. Then a voice. 20 minutes. Storm's got everything locked down. We don't have 20 minutes. Adrian looked at Emma. She was watching all of them with those two smart eyes, starting to realize this wasn't a game anymore. Megan, he said. She went next door to call the police. Local PD won't know what they're walking into, Garrett said. These people will go through them like tissue paper. More sounds from below. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving through the house with military precision. Ross pulled his gun. We can't hold this position. Too many entry points, no cover. The basement, Adrian said. There's a storm shelter. Old coal room from when the house was built. Only one entrance, concrete walls. We can lock it from inside. Garrett nodded. Show us. Now. Adrian scooped up Emma. She wrapped her arms around his neck, Hoppy squashed between them. Daddy, I'm scared. I know, baby, but we're going to play another game, okay? The quiet game. The winner gets 2 hot chocolates. With rainbow marshmallows? With rainbow marshmallows. They moved into the hallway. Adrian led them to the back stairs, the servants' stairs from when rich people had lived here. Narrow, steep, barely used. Behind them, voices from the first floor. Spread out! Find the girl! Emma went rigid in his arms. Adrian didn't run. Running made noise. He walked quickly, precisely down the stairs into the basement. Garrett and Ross followed, weapons drawn, moving like they'd done this 1,000 times. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed beams, boxes of old belongings Adrian kept meaning to sort through. The storm shelter was at the far end, behind his workbench. A heavy steel door set into the wall, original to the house, built back when people worried about nuclear war instead of criminal empires. Adrian set Emma down, pulled the door open. The space inside was small, maybe 8 by 10, with a bare bulb overhead and nothing else. But the walls were concrete, 2 feet thick, and the door could be bolted from inside. In, Garrett ordered. They filed in. Adrian went last, pulling the door shut behind them. The bolt was old but solid. It slid into place with a heavy thunk. Silence. Just their breathing and the muffled sounds of people moving through the house above them. Emma sat on the floor, Hoppy in her lap. She wasn't crying, wasn't asking questions. She just watched Adrian with those eyes that belonged to a woman he'd loved and lost. Mr. Cole, Garrett said quietly, I need you to understand something. The people upstairs, they're not FBI, they're not cops, they're cleaners. They're here to tie up loose ends. Meaning? Meaning they know about the hard drive, they know we're here, and they know about Emma. Adrian's blood went cold. She's 6 years old. She's Vivian Sterling's daughter. That makes her a liability. Garrett's face was granite. If they can't find the drive, they'll take her as leverage. Over my dead body. That's exactly what they're planning. Ross checked his phone. No signal down here. Walls are too thick. Backup? Adrian asked. 17 minutes out. We just have to hold until... The sound of the basement door opening cut him off. Footsteps on the stairs, descending slowly, carefully. Then a voice, amplified somehow, echoing through the basement. Mr. Cole, we know you're down here. We know the FBI is with you, and we know you have something that belongs to us. The voice was calm, almost friendly. That made it worse. Here's what's going to happen, it continued. You're going to open that door. You're going to give us the hard drive, and then we're going to leave. No one gets hurt. Your daughter goes back to her bedroom. Everyone walks away. Adrian looked at Garrett. The agent shook his head fractionally. If we give them the drive, Garrett whispered, you're all dead anyway. They can't leave witnesses. And if we don't? They'll try to force the door, but this shelter was built to withstand a blast. It'll take them time. Time we don't have. Emma tugged on Adrian's sleeve. Daddy, who's that man? Just someone confused, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. The voice came again. I'm going to count to 10, Mr. Cole. Then we start making this difficult. 1, 2. Ross moved to the door, pressed his ear against it. I count at least 4, maybe 5. They're setting up something. Feels like... His eyes widened. They're rigging the door. Explosive charge. Jesus, Garrett hissed. They're willing to bring down half the house. 3, 4. Adrian pulled Emma close, covered her ears. "We need options," he said. "There are no options," Garrett said flatly. "We hold until backup arrives or we die here. Those are the choices." 5, 6. Adrian's mind raced. The shelter was a box. One door, no windows. No way out except through armed killers who'd already murdered Vivian and God knows how many others. Think. Then he remembered. "The coal chute," he said. Both agents looked at him. "This used to be a coal room. There's a delivery chute boarded up on the outside. It leads to the side of the house." 7, 8. "Where?" Ross demanded. Adrian pointed to the corner, where ancient wooden boards covered what looked like solid wall. "There, behind that." Garrett was already moving, yanking at the boards. They were old, brittle. They splintered in his hands. Behind them, a rusted metal chute angled upward towards street level. 9? "It's too small for us," Garrett said, "but a child could fit." Adrian's stomach dropped. "No, absolutely not. Mr. Cole, she's 6. I'm not sending her out there alone." "You're sending her out there alive," Garrett snapped. "Once that door blows, we're all dead. But if she's outside, if she makes it to the neighbors..." 10. The explosion was deafening. The door held, barely. But smoke poured through the bent frame, and Adrian could hear them working on the weakened metal, prying, forcing. "Now!" Garrett shoved Emma toward the chute. "Go! Run to the house with lights. Tell them to call the police." Emma looked at Adrian, terrified. "It's okay, baby," Adrian said, forcing his voice steady, even as his world fell apart. "You're going to climb up, just like at the playground. And when you get outside, you run to Mrs. Stevens' house. Can you do that for me?" "But, Daddy, I love you so much." He kissed her forehead. So much. "Now go. Be brave." She crawled into the chute, Hoppy still clutched in one hand. The metal clanged as she climbed. Adrian watched her small form disappear into darkness, up toward the storm. Another impact on the door. The bolt was giving way. "She's out," Ross reported, watching through the chute. "She's running. Good girl. Go, go, go." The door exploded inward. Garrett and Ross returned fire, the sound massive in the confined space. Adrian dropped to the floor, hands over his head, ears ringing. Chaos, gunfire, shouting, then silence. Adrian looked up. Garrett was down, blood spreading across his chest. Ross was on his knees, weapon empty, hands going up. 3 men entered the shelter, professional, efficient, faces that would disappear in a crowd. The one in front pointed his gun at Adrian's head. "The drive," he said simply. Adrian didn't move. Couldn't. His mind was stuck on Emma, climbing through that chute, running through the blizzard toward safety. Please, he thought, please let her make it. The man cocked his gun, and then, from somewhere above, impossibly loud, "Police, drop your weapons!" Blue lights flashed through the coal chute. Sirens wailed. The basement erupted with sound and movement, officers flooding down the stairs, flashlights cutting through smoke, voices shouting commands. The 3 men tried to run. They didn't make it. Adrian stayed on the floor, watching it all happen like it was underwater, like it wasn't real. Paramedics came. They worked on Garrett, still breathing, barely. Ross was already on his feet, talking rapidly into a radio. Someone pulled Adrian up, asked if he was hurt. He didn't know, couldn't tell. "Emma," he managed. "My daughter." "She's safe," the officer said. "Next door with a woman named Megan. Kid's asking for you." Adrian's legs nearly gave out. They led him upstairs through his destroyed house, out into the blizzard. Police cars everywhere, neighbors and windows. The storm still raging. And there, on the Stevens front porch, wrapped in a blanket, holding Hoppy, Emma. She saw him and ran. Adrian caught her, lifted her, held her like he'd never let go. She was shaking, crying now, but alive, safe. "You did so good," he whispered into her hair. So good. Megan appeared beside them, tears on her face. "I'm so sorry. I should have..." "You saved her life," Adrian said. "Both of you." An agent approached. Not Garrett or Ross, someone new. "Mr. Cole, we need to debrief. But first..." He hesitated. There's something you should know about what was on that drive. Adrian looked at him, exhausted beyond measure. Tell me tomorrow. Sir, tomorrow. The agent nodded, stepped back. Adrian carried Emma to the ambulance, let them check her over. Minor scrapes from the coal chute. Nothing serious, nothing that wouldn't heal. The paramedic smiled. Brave girl you've got there. I know, Adrian said. Emma looked up at him with Vivian's eyes. Daddy, she whispered, can we still have hot chocolate? And Adrian laughed, broken, exhausted, but real. Yeah, baby, he said. Rainbow marshmallows and everything. The longest night was finally breaking, but somewhere in the back of his mind, Adrian knew the truth. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. The hospital coffee tasted like burnt rubber, but Adrian drank it anyway. 3 a.m. The ER waiting room had that fluorescent nowhere quality, like time had stopped existing. Emma was asleep in his lap, finally, after an hour of shaking and crying and asking questions he couldn't answer. Megan sat beside them, staring at nothing, her hands wrapped around a paper cup she hadn't touched in 20 minutes. Adrian's phone buzzed. He ignored it. It had been buzzing for 2 hours straight. His mother, his supervisor, people from the firm, reporters somehow, all wanting to know what the hell had happened at 447 Oakwood Avenue. He didn't know what to tell them. The truth sounded insane even inside his own head. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Mr. Cole, Agent Ross would like to speak with you. Adrian looked down at Emma. Her face was peaceful now, thumb half in her mouth, Hoppy tucked under her chin. For a 6-year-old who'd just crawled through a coal chute to escape hired killers, she looked remarkably normal. Kids were resilient. Everyone said that. Adrian hoped to hell it was true. I can watch her, Megan said quietly. Take your time. He transferred Emma carefully into Megan's arms. She didn't wake, just made a small sound and curled closer. Adrian followed the nurse down a corridor that smelled like antiseptic and bad decisions. She led him to a private room where Agent Kevin Ross sat on the edge of a bed, his shoulder bandaged, looking about 20 years older than he had 4 hours ago. How's Garrett? Adrian asked. Surgery, touch and go. Ross's voice was flat. Bullet collapsed his lung, nicked his liver. Doctors say if the paramedics had been 3 minutes slower, he'd be dead. I'm sorry. Don't be. We knew what we were walking into. Ross gestured to the chair beside the bed. Sit. We need to talk. Adrian sat. Every muscle in his body ached. He hadn't realized how tense he'd been until now, how hard he'd been holding himself together. The 3 men who came for the drive are dead, Ross said. All 3. Chicago PD didn't give them a chance to surrender. Apparently storming a house with a child inside gets you shot first, questioned later. Good. Ross looked at him. You mean that? Yeah, I do. Adrian met his eyes. They were going to kill Emma, kill all of us. So yeah, I'm glad they're dead. Something shifted in Ross's expression. Approval, maybe. Or just exhaustion. The hard drive's with our forensics team now, he said. Initial scan shows it's everything we hoped for. Financial records, communications, shell company structures. Vivian Sterling spent 18 months building an airtight case against one of the most sophisticated money laundering operations the Bureau's ever seen. Who are they? You ever heard of the Cordova Network? Adrian shook his head. Most people haven't. That's by design. Ross shifted, winced. Cordova started as a logistics company in the 90s. Shipping containers, freight routes, all legitimate. But they figured out early that if you control the supply chain, you control everything that moves through it. Drugs, weapons, cash, people, doesn't matter. If it needs to go from point A to point B without anyone looking too close, Cordova can make it happen. And Vivian's company was involved? Not her company. Sterling Global was clean, but some of her competitors weren't. Cordova had infiltrated their operations, using them as fronts to move money around the world. Vivian only found out because she was doing due diligence on an acquisition. Started noticing discrepancies, manifests that didn't match actual shipments, invoices for goods that never existed. Adrian rubbed his face. She could have just walked away, reported it anonymously. She tried. She sent everything she had to the FBI. Know what happened? Ross's smile was bitter. Nothing. Case got buried. Someone higher up the chain decided it wasn't worth pursuing. That's when she realized Cordova had reach. People in agencies, in courts, in places that were supposed to be clean. So she built her own case. Yeah, used her connections, her money, her access. She was brilliant at it too. Everything on that drive is admissible, traceable, ironclad. She was going to destroy them. But they found out, Adrian said. Not until it was almost too late. By the time they realized what she was doing, she'd already hidden the evidence. They killed her hoping it died with her. Ross paused. They were wrong. The weight of it settled over Adrian like snow. Vivian, dead for 4 years, had just reached back from the grave and blown apart a criminal empire. And she'd used him to do it. Why me? He asked. You said she chose me to raise Emma, but there had to be other options. People with money, resources, protection. Ross was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This was in the safe deposit box with the hard drive, he said. It's addressed to you. We had to read it. Evidence protocol. But it's yours now. Adrian took it. His hands were shaking. The paper was heavy, expensive. Vivian's handwriting covered one side in clean, precise strokes. He'd recognize it anywhere. She used to leave him notes when they were together, little observations and jokes tucked into his pockets, his bag, once inside his laptop case where he'd found it during a meeting and almost laughed out loud. He unfolded it. Adrian, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and you found what I left behind. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the danger, for the lies, for putting this weight on you when all you ever wanted was a quiet life. You're probably wondering why you... The truth is simple. You're the best man I've ever known. Not the richest. Not the most powerful. Not the most exciting. Though we had our moments, didn't we? But the best. The one who shows up. The one who keeps promises. The one who doesn't run when things get hard. When I found out I was pregnant, I knew I couldn't keep her. The people I was investigating would have used her against me, hurt her to make me stop. So I made a choice. I gave her to the only person I trusted to love her the way she deserves. You don't remember, but we talked about kids once. Late night, your apartment, half a bottle of wine in. You said if you ever had a daughter, you'd teach her to be brave and kind, and to never let anyone make her feel small. I believed you then. I believe you now. Emma is yours in every way that matters. Raise her well, keep her safe, and forgive me for asking you to carry this burden. The hard drive contains everything needed to finish what I started. Give it to the FBI. They'll know what to do. And when it's over, when the people who killed me are behind bars, tell Emma about me if you want. Or don't. I trust your judgment. I loved you, Adrian. I never said it when I should have, but I loved you. And I love our daughter even though I'll never meet her. Thank you for being exactly who you are. V. Adrian read it twice, then a third time. His vision blurred. He blinked hard, tried to breathe normally, failed. She dated you for 8 months, Ross said quietly. We pulled the records. August 2019 to April 2020, right before she found out she was pregnant. We broke up, Adrian said, voice rough. She ended it, said she was moving to Singapore for work. That long distance wouldn't work. She lied. She was never going to Singapore. She was already building the case against Cordova, already planning how to keep Emma safe. She could have told me, but could she? You would have tried to protect her, gotten involved, and they would have killed you both. Ross leaned forward. She made the only choice that kept you alive, Mr. Cole. Kept Emma alive. Sometimes love looks like walking away. Adrian folded the letter carefully, slipped it into his pocket. The weight of it felt like an anchor. What happens now? He asked. Now we process the evidence, start making arrests. It'll take months, maybe longer. Cordova has people everywhere. We have to be careful, move slowly, build cases that'll stick. And Emma? She's not in danger anymore. The drive is secured, the immediate threat is neutralized, but Ross hesitated. There might be residual risk. People who want revenge, who blame your daughter for their associates getting caught. So she's not safe. She's safer than she was yesterday. We can offer protection if you want it. Safe house, relocation, new identities. Adrian thought of Emma asleep in the waiting room, thumb in her mouth, dreaming about rainbow marshmallows and snow monsters that turned out to be real. "No," he said. "No running. We stay in Chicago. We keep our lives." "Mr. Cole? She's 6 years old. She just lost her nanny's trust, her sense of safety, her belief that home is a place where bad things don't happen. I'm not taking away her city, her school, her friends on top of that." Adrian's voice hardened. "We stay. You make sure whoever's left of Cordova knows that touching Emma means bringing down the full weight of the federal government. You make it not worth their time." Ross studied him, then nodded slowly. "Okay, we can do that. But you take precautions. New locks, security system. Maybe think about getting a dog." "A dog?" "Big one. German Shepherd, maybe. Kids love dogs. And they're hell of a deterrent." Adrian almost laughed. Almost. "Fine. We'll get a dog." "Good." Ross stood, winced again. "I need to get this shoulder looked at properly. But Mr. Cole, for what it's worth, Vivian was right about you. You are the best man for this." "I don't feel like it. No one ever does." Ross moved toward the door, then stopped. "One more thing. The letter mentioned telling Emma about her mother. My advice? Wait until she's older. Let her have a normal childhood first. The truth will still be there when she's ready for it. And if she asks, tell her the truth. Just not all of it. Not yet." He left. Adrian sat alone in the hospital room, listening to machines beep in other rooms, voices murmuring in the hallway, the whole building humming with the work of keeping people alive. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. 23 missed calls, 14 voicemails, 47 texts. The most recent was from his supervisor. "Call me immediately. What the hell is going on?" Adrian turned the phone off. He walked back to the waiting room. Emma was still asleep, but Megan was awake now, looking more alert. "Are we okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Adrian said. We're okay." "I quit." He blinked. "What?" "I quit. I can't." Megan's voice cracked. "I locked that door, Adrian. I swear I locked it. But somehow they got in anyway, and Emma could have been hurt. And I just kept thinking, what if I'd done something different? What if— Megan, stop." Adrian sat beside her. "You saved Emma's life tonight. You got her to safety. You called the police. You did everything right. But I was supposed to keep her safe, and You did. You did keep her safe." He took her hand. "And I need you to keep doing it. Emma trusts you. She loves you. Don't take that away from her because you think you failed. You didn't fail." Megan wiped her eyes. "You mean that?" "Yeah, I do. Besides, you already know where the rainbow marshmallows are. I'd have to train someone new." She laughed wetly. "That's your reason?" "That's my reason." Emma stirred, opened her eyes, saw Adrian, and immediately reached for him. He gathered her up, felt her arms wrap around his neck. "Can we go home now?" She mumbled against his shoulder. Adrian looked at Megan. She nodded. "Yeah, baby," he said. "Let's go home." The house was a crime scene, yellow tape across the front door, police officers still cataloging evidence, broken furniture, bullet holes in walls. The storm had ended, but the damage remained. Adrian stood on the sidewalk with Emma, watching strangers move through their home like it belonged to them now. "We can't stay here tonight," he said to Megan. "Maybe not for a while." "My place is too small," Megan said. "One bedroom." "Hotel, then." "I know a place," Ross said, appearing beside them like a ghost. "FBI has a safe house in Oak Park. Nothing fancy, but it's clean and secure. You can stay there until your house is cleared." Adrian wanted to argue, wanted to insist they were fine, that they didn't need federal help, but Emma was shivering despite the blanket wrapped around her, and the house looked like a war zone, and he was so tired he could barely stand. "Okay," he said. "Thank you." The safe house turned out to be a 2-bedroom ranch on a quiet street, the kind of place that disappeared into the background of suburban America. Beige carpet, cream walls, furniture that looked like it came from a catalog in 1997. But it was warm and safe. And Emma immediately claimed the bedroom with the bigger window. "Can Hoppy and I sleep in the same bed?" she asked. "Of course," Adrian said. "And can we have hot chocolate now? You promised." He'd forgotten. In all the chaos, the terror, the revelations. He'd completely forgotten about hot chocolate. "Let me see what's in the kitchen," Megan said, already moving. Adrian tucked Emma into the unfamiliar bed, pulling covers up to her chin. She looked so small against the pillows. "Daddy?" she said quietly. "Those men tonight. They were bad, weren't they? Not snow monsters." His heart clenched. "Yeah, sweetheart. They were bad." "Did you make them go away?" "A lot of people helped make them go away. The police, and Agent Ross, and Megan. And you, being so brave and running when I told you to." "I was scared." "I know, I was scared too." Her eyes widened. "You were?" "Of course. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared." She thought about that. Hoppy was very brave. Hoppy was the bravest. Megan appeared with 2 mugs. One for Emma, hot chocolate with rainbow marshmallows somehow, because Megan was magic, and one for Adrian that looked like straight whiskey. "Where did you—" he started. "Safe house," Megan said. "They stocked them for traumatized witnesses. Found a whole bottle of decent bourbon in the cabinet." Emma sipped her chocolate, leaving a marshmallow mustache. "This is the best day," she announced. Adrian and Megan looked at each other. "Why's that, baby?" Adrian asked carefully. "Because I got to go on an adventure and climb through a secret tunnel, and now I get hot chocolate in a new house, and tomorrow we get a dog." What?" "Agent Ross said we're getting a dog. A big one. I want to name him Captain Fluffy Boots." We'll talk about names later." Emma finished her chocolate, handed Adrian the mug, and burrowed under the covers. "Night, Daddy. Night, Megan. Night, Hoppy. Night, Captain Fluffy Boots, even though we haven't met you yet." Within 5 minutes, she was asleep. Adrian stood in the doorway, watching her breathe. "She's going to be okay," Megan said softly beside him. "How do you know?" "Because she has you." They moved to the living room. Adrian drank the bourbon. It burned going down, but in a good way, like it was cauterizing something inside him that had been bleeding for hours. "I need to tell you something," he said, "about Emma's mother." Megan listened while he explained. All of it. Vivian, the case, the hard drive, the letter. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "You didn't know," she finally said. "This whole time you had no idea Emma was your ex-girlfriend's daughter." "No." I don't even know what that is. Tragic? Romantic? Completely insane?" "All 3, Adrian said. "Are you going to tell Emma?" "Eventually, when she's older, when she can understand." He stared at the bottom of his glass. "Right now she thinks her mother died giving birth to her. That's painful enough. I don't need to add, and also she was murdered by criminals your daddy accidentally helped catch to that story." "You didn't accidentally do anything. Vivian chose you on purpose. She trusted you with the most important thing in her life." I keep thinking about that, about her pregnant and alone, making these impossible choices. She could have kept Emma, could have tried to protect her some other way. "But she didn't," Megan said. "She gave Emma to you. And look at what happened tonight. When everything went to hell, you kept her safe. You got her out. Vivian was right to trust you." Adrian wanted to believe that, wanted to feel like he deserved that trust. Instead, he just felt tired. His phone, turned back on, buzzed with a new message. His supervisor again. "I need you in the office Monday. We need to discuss your future with the firm." Monday. 2 days away. Adrian had forgotten he had a job. A normal job with normal problems like quarterly reviews and insurance assessments and meetings that ran too long. It felt like something from another life. From before armed men broke into his house and his daughter crawled through a coal chute and his dead ex-girlfriend's secrets exploded across his living room. "What are you going to tell them?" Megan asked, reading over his shoulder. "I don't know." "You could take leave. Medical, family emergency, whatever. They can't fire you for—" "They can fire me for whatever they want. I'm not irreplaceable." Adrian set down his glass. "But honestly, I don't care. Let them fire me. I'll find something else." "Adrian, Emma almost died tonight, Megan. Almost died because her mother tried to do the right thing, and I inherited the consequences. I'm not spending the next 20 years in a job I hate, missing her childhood because Marcus Chen needs another PowerPoint about flood insurance." Megan smiled. "Good." "Good?" "Yeah, good. You've been miserable at that firm since I met you. Maybe this is the universe telling you to do something different. The universe just sent hired killers to my house. Okay, poor choice of words, but you know what I mean. He did, kind of. The bourbon was making everything soft around the edges. Adrian stood, stretched, felt vertebrae pop. I'm going to check on Emma one more time, he said. Then I'm going to sleep for 12 hours. I'll take the couch, Megan said. You don't have to stay. Yes, I do. You think I'm leaving you two alone after tonight? Not a chance. Adrian didn't argue. Didn't have the energy. He checked on Emma, still asleep, Hoppy clutched tight, then collapsed into the other bedroom. The bed was harder than his own. The pillow smelled like industrial detergent, and he'd never been more grateful for anything in his life. Sleep came like a hammer. He dreamed about Vivian, not the Vivian from the letter, scared and pregnant and planning. The Vivian he'd known, sharp wit and sharper ambition, always 3 moves ahead in conversations, the way she'd looked at him sometimes like she was trying to figure out a puzzle. They were in her apartment, late night, wine and music and the Chicago skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. If you could have one superpower, she was saying, what would it be? Invisibility, he'd answered. So I could move through the world without anyone noticing. That's sad. It's practical. It's running away. She touched his face. You're always running away, Adrian Cole. From what? Yourself. The person you could be if you stopped playing it safe. And who's that? I don't know, but I'd like to meet him. Adrian woke up. Sunlight streamed through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Then it all came back. The house, the siege, Emma, Vivian, everything. He checked his phone. 11:47 a.m. He'd slept for 8 hours. Voices from the kitchen. Emma's laugh. Megan saying something he couldn't make out. Adrian got up, splashed water on his face, tried to look like a functioning human being. In the kitchen, Emma was eating cereal at the table, still in her princess pajamas, Hoppy propped beside her bowl. Megan was making coffee. Morning, sleepyhead, she said. Emma beamed at him. Daddy, Megan says we can go look at dogs today. Can we, please? Adrian sat down heavily. We should probably wait until... Agent Ross called, Megan interrupted, while you were asleep. He said the house will be cleared by tomorrow, but he recommends getting that security system set up before you move back in. And he gave me the name of a breeder. German Shepherds, trained for family protection. I want a fluffy one, Emma announced. They're all fluffy, baby. No, I want a really fluffy one, like a cloud with legs. Adrian looked at Megan. She shrugged. She's been talking about Captain Fluffy Boots for 20 minutes. I think we're committed. We're not naming the dog Captain Fluffy Boots. Why not? Emma demanded. Because that's not a name, that's a description. Captain is a name, and Fluffy Boots is his last name, like your Adrian and Cole. The logic was airtight. Adrian didn't have a counter-argument. We'll discuss it when we meet the dogs, he said carefully. Emma went back to her cereal, victorious. Megan handed Adrian coffee. It was perfect. Cream, 1 sugar, exactly how he liked it. She'd been working for him long enough to know. Thank you, he said quietly. For everything. You already thanked me. I'm thanking you again. They drank coffee in comfortable silence while Emma narrated a complex story involving Hoppy, the cereal pieces, and an invisible dragon that only she could see. Adrian's phone rang. Agent Ross. Mr. Cole? He said when Adrian answered. How's the morning treating you? We're alive. That's something. More than something. Listen, I have news. The forensics team finished their initial analysis of the hard drive. We've identified 37 individuals directly implicated in the Cordova network. Arrests are starting today. That fast? We've been building parallel cases for months, waiting for the missing piece. Vivian's evidence is that piece. Judges are signing warrants as we speak. Ross paused. It's going to be big. National news? Maybe international. You should prepare Emma for attention. What kind of attention? Reporters, questions about her mother, people trying to connect dots. Another pause. We can keep her name out of it, seal the records, classify her as a protected minor. But people will figure it out eventually. They always do. Adrian looked at Emma, still talking to Hoppy, completely oblivious to the storm about to break. Do what you can, he said. I'll handle the rest. There's something else. We found a bank account in Emma's name, set up by Vivian, managed through a trust. It's substantial. How substantial? $8 million. The room tilted. Say that again, Adrian managed. 8 million. Growing interest since Emma was born. It's hers when she turns 18. Until then, you're listed as the trustee. You can access it for her education, medical care, necessities. Adrian sat down, stood up, sat down again. Vivian left Emma $8 million, he said. She left Emma a future, Ross corrected. College, graduate school, a house, whatever she needs. Vivian wanted to make sure her daughter never struggled. We don't need. This isn't about need, Mr. Cole. It's about Vivian trying to give her daughter something she couldn't give her in life. Let her do that. Use the money. Make sure Emma has every opportunity. Adrian thought about his rental house, his aging Honda, his mediocre salary that barely covered bills and Megan's wages and Emma's school tuition. Thought about the stress of money, the constant calculation of what they could afford. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. Thank you for telling me. The paperwork's being sent over, sign it, return it, and the account is active. Ross cleared his throat. One more thing. Garrett made it through surgery. He's awake. Asking about Emma. Tell him she's fine. Tell him thank you. I will. The call ended. Adrian stood in the kitchen of a federal safe house, holding a phone that had just told him his daughter was a millionaire and his dead ex-girlfriend had planned for literally everything. Daddy? Emma was looking at him. You look funny. I feel funny. Are you sick? No, baby. Just surprised. About the dog? About a lot of things. She nodded sagely, as if this made perfect sense, and went back to her cereal. Megan raised an eyebrow. Adrian shook his head. Later. The rest of the day passed in a strange blur. They went to the breeder Ross had recommended, a woman in her 60s who ran a small operation out of a farm in McHenry County. She had 3 young German shepherds ready for placement, all trained in basic obedience and protection work. Emma fell in love with the fluffiest one immediately. This is Captain Fluffy Boots, she announced, hugging the dog's neck. The dog, to his credit, sat patiently and let her. His name is actually Baron, the breeder said, smiling. But you can call him whatever you want. Captain Fluffy Boots, Emma insisted. Adrian looked at the dog. The dog looked back with intelligent brown eyes that seemed to say, I've had worse names. We'll take him, Adrian said. They drove back to Oak Park with a German shepherd in the back seat, and Emma singing a song she'd made up about adventures and tunnels and brave dogs who protected princesses. When they pulled into the safe house driveway, Megan turned to Adrian. She's going to be okay, she said again. This time, Adrian believed her. That night, after Emma was asleep with Captain Fluffy Boots curled at the foot of her bed, after Megan had gone to the guest room, Adrian sat alone in the living room with Vivian's letter. He read it again. And again. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Outside, Chicago hummed with its usual chaos. Inside, everything had changed. Tomorrow they'd go home. Tomorrow he'd quit his job. Tomorrow he'd start figuring out how to raise a millionaire 6-year-old with a dead mother who'd saved the world and a father who was just trying his best. But tonight, Adrian let himself feel something he hadn't felt in years. Grateful. For Vivian's trust. For Emma's safety. For Megan's loyalty. For second chances and hard choices, and the strange, impossible way life kept moving forward, even when it felt like it should stop. He folded the letter carefully and put it in his wallet, where it would stay for the next 12 years until Emma was old enough to read it herself. Then Adrian Cole, single father and accidental hero, went to bed. The worst was over. Or so he thought. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for everything to fall apart again. Adrian should have seen it coming, should have known that one night of violence wouldn't be the end of it, that men like the ones Vivian had exposed didn't just disappear because the FBI made some arrests. But he'd wanted to believe the danger was over, wanted Emma to go back to being a normal kid who worried about math homework and whether Captain Fluffy Boots liked his new food bowl. He'd been an idiot. The first sign came on a Tuesday morning. Adrian was making breakfast, scrambled eggs, slightly burnt because he'd been distracted by Emma's insistence that the dog needed a birthday party, even though they didn't know when his birthday was. When his phone rang. Agent Ross. Again. "We have a problem," Ross said without preamble. Adrian turned down the stove. "What kind of problem?" "The arrests we made? 17 of them posted bail yesterday. High-priced lawyers, judges we didn't know were compromised, the whole system working exactly how it's not supposed to. They're out. Out as in walking around free. Ankle monitors, travel restrictions, all the usual conditions. But out." Ross's voice was tight. "And Mr. Cole, 3 of them have connections to the team that hit your house." Adrian's hand went still on the spatula. "You said Emma wasn't in danger anymore." "I said the immediate threat was neutralized, past tense. This is a new situation." "How new?" 2 of them were spotted in Chicago yesterday. We don't know why. Could be innocent. Family, lawyers, whatever. But given the timing, given who they are, I'm not assuming anything is innocent." Emma wandered into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, Hoppy dragging behind her. "Is breakfast ready?" Adrian forced a smile. "Almost, baby. Go wash your hands." She disappeared toward the bathroom. Captain Fluffy Boots followed, protective shadow that he'd become. "What do you need me to do?" Adrian asked quietly. "Be aware. Keep eyes on Emma. If you see anything unusual, cars you don't recognize, people paying too much attention, you call me immediately." Pause. "And Mr. Cole? I know you didn't want relocation before, but the offer still stands. We can have you out of Chicago in 6 hours." "No. These people have resources. They have reach. If they decide Emma's a problem, then they'll have to go through me." Adrian's voice came out harder than he intended. "We're not running. We're not hiding. You do your job, I'll do mine. Your job is risk assessment, not personal security. My job is keeping my daughter safe. Everything else is just details." Ross sighed. "Stubborn. Vivian mentioned that in her notes. Said you were the most stubborn man she'd ever met." "She left me notes?" "Interview transcripts. We found them in her files. She talked to a lawyer about the adoption, about you. Wanted to make sure she was making the right choice." Another pause. "She was very thorough." Of course she was. Vivian had been thorough about everything. Emma came back, hands still dripping. "Daddy, the soap smells like flowers and Captain Fluffy Boots tried to drink from the toilet." "We'll work on that," Adrian said. "Sit down, breakfast is ready." He served eggs and toast, watching Emma eat with the kind of focus he usually reserved for insurance fraud cases. Looking for signs of stress, trauma, anything that suggested the events of 3 weeks ago were affecting her more than she let on. But she just ate her eggs and told him a long, complicated story about a girl at school who'd brought a hamster for show and tell, and how the hamster had escaped, and they'd spent half an hour searching before finding it in the teacher's desk drawer. Normal. She seemed completely normal, which somehow made it worse. "Hey," Adrian said when she paused for breath, "how would you feel about Megan picking you up from school for a while, instead of you taking the bus?" Emma frowned. "Why?" "Just think it might be nice. You and Megan could stop for ice cream on the way home." "Every day?" "Sure, every day." Her face lit up. "Okay, can we get the kind with cookie dough?" "Whatever kind you want." Crisis averted. Emma went back to her breakfast, oblivious. Adrian texted Megan, "Need you to do school pickup starting today. We'll explain later." Her response came immediately. On it. He added, "And Megan, be careful." The dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, always am. The morning proceeded normally after that. Emma got dressed, argued about wearing a coat even though it was still cold, finally agreed when Adrian pointed out that Captain Fluffy Boots wore a collar, so it was basically the same thing. They walked to school together, the dog trotting beside them like a furry bodyguard. Adrian watched other parents dropping off kids, scanning faces for anyone who looked wrong. But it was just the usual crowd, tired mothers with coffee, fathers checking phones, nannies corralling multiple children. "Bye, Daddy," Emma said, hugging him at the school entrance. "Bye, baby. Listen to your teacher. Be good." "I'm always good." "That's debatable." She giggled and ran inside. Adrian stood there longer than usual, watching the door she'd disappeared through. Captain Fluffy Boots sat beside him, alert, ready. Keep her safe, Adrian muttered to the dog. Captain Fluffy Boots looked at him like, that's literally my job. At home, Adrian tried to work. He'd quit the insurance firm, emailed his resignation the day after returning from the safe house, ignored Marcus Chen's increasingly angry voicemails, but he still had freelance contracts to fulfill, reports to finish, busy work to keep his mind occupied. It didn't work. He kept thinking about those 17 men out on bail, kept wondering which ones were in Chicago, what they wanted, whether they knew where Emma went to school. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Adrian almost didn't answer. Then something, instinct, paranoia, the same thing that had kept him alive that night in the basement, made him pick up. Mr. Cole, a woman's voice, cultured, calm. My name is Diana Reeves. I'm an attorney representing several individuals recently released on bail in connection with the Cordova Network investigation. Adrian's blood went cold. How did you get this number? That's not important. What's important is that my clients are deeply concerned about certain evidence that's been submitted to federal prosecutors, evidence that may have been obtained illegally. It wasn't. That's a matter of legal interpretation. Regardless, my clients would like to reach a settlement, a quiet resolution that benefits everyone involved. I'm not involved. You became involved when you provided law enforcement with materials belonging to Vivian Sterling. Materials that arguably should have gone to her next of kin rather than federal agents. Adrian laughed without humor. Her next of kin is 6 years old. She couldn't exactly file the evidence herself. Precisely my point, Mr. Cole. Emma Sterling Cole is entitled to her mother's property, including digital assets that may contain privileged business information. The hard drive wasn't business information. It was evidence of crimes. Again, interpretation. Diana Reeves's voice never changed pitch. Professional, empty. My clients are prepared to offer substantial compensation in exchange for your cooperation in having that evidence suppressed. We're talking about generational wealth, Mr. Cole. Enough to ensure Emma never wants for anything. She already has that. The trust fund, yes, we're aware, but $8 million doesn't go as far as it used to. Not with inflation, cost of living. Wouldn't you prefer $20 million? 30. What I'd prefer is for you and your clients to go to hell. Mr. Cole, I'm not interested in your money. I'm not interested in your cooperation. And if you or anyone connected to you comes near my daughter, I will make it my life's mission to ensure every single one of you spends the rest of your lives in prison. Silence. Then Diana Reeves laughed, a sound like ice cracking. You're making a mistake, she said. My clients are reasonable people, but there are others involved who are less flexible. Declining this offer puts you and Emma at significant risk. Is that a threat? It's a statement of fact. The world you've stumbled into is more complicated than you understand. Vivian Sterling made powerful enemies. Those enemies don't forget. Neither do I. He hung up. His hands were shaking. Adrian set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. Captain Fluffy Boots appeared beside him, pressing against his leg. The dog knew. Somehow, he always knew. Adrian called Ross. They just contacted me, he said when the agent answered. Attorney named Diana Reeves tried to bribe me into suppressing evidence. Diana Reeves, Ross swore. She's the best defense lawyer money can buy. If she's involved, Cordova's pulling out all the stops. She threatened us. Not directly, I'm guessing. Implied risk, suggested consequences, never said anything actionable. Yeah, how'd you know? Because that's how she operates. Reeves has never been charged with witness intimidation because she's too smart to cross legal lines. Keys clicking in the background. I'm flagging this call. We'll get a trace on that number, see if we can tie it back to her firm. She knew about Emma's trust fund, knew the exact amount. Ross went quiet. That's concerning. That information should be sealed. Should be? But apparently Cordova has people everywhere, so what does sealed even mean? It means we need to be more careful. More typing. I'm sending a unit to sit on your house. Unmarked car, rotating shifts. They'll keep eyes on anyone who gets close. Emma will notice. Emma's 6. Tell her it's neighborhood watch or something. Adrian rubbed his face. This is insane. 3 weeks ago, these people didn't even know she existed. Now they're trying to bribe me and threatening us, and They're desperate, Ross interrupted. The evidence Vivian gathered is airtight. Without it, their lawyers can create reasonable doubt, drag trials out for years. With it, they're done. So yeah, they're going to try everything, money, threats, whatever works. And if nothing works? Ross didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was careful. We won't let it get that far. Which wasn't an answer at all. Adrian spent the rest of the morning pacing. He tried to eat lunch and couldn't. Tried to work and gave up after reading the same paragraph 7 times. Finally, he took Captain Fluffy Boots for a walk, needing to move, to do something. The neighborhood looked normal. Early March in Chicago, snow melting into gray slush, trees still bare, people walking dogs and pushing strollers. The unmarked sedan Ross had mentioned was parked 3 houses down, 2 agents inside pretending to read newspapers. Adrian walked past them without acknowledging their presence. 3 blocks from home, his phone rang again. Different number this time. He answered. What? Mr. Cole. A man's voice now, older, tired. Please don't hang up. My name is Robert Chen. I'm calling about my son. Wrong number. Marcus Chen, your former supervisor. Adrian stopped walking. What about him? He's missing. Has been for 2 days. His wife called me this morning, frantic. Police won't do anything yet. Adults can disappear voluntarily. 24 hours isn't long enough for a missing person report. But Marcus would never just leave. He has a daughter, responsibilities. I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't see what it has to do with me. The last person he spoke to was you, Mr. Cole. According to his office, he was trying to reach you about your resignation. Left multiple messages. Then he went home Friday evening and never came back. Boo. The world tilted slightly. I didn't talk to Marcus, Adrian said slowly. I resigned by email. Never answered his calls. I know, I've heard the voicemails. He was angry, confused about why you'd quit so suddenly. Robert Chen's voice shook. Mr. Cole, I read the news. I know what happened at your house. I know about the arrests, the Cordova network. And I'm afraid Marcus might have been asking the wrong questions to the wrong people. What are you saying? I'm saying my son works for a major risk assessment firm, a firm that handles insurance for shipping companies, logistics operations, the kind of companies Cordova infiltrated. Pause. What if Marcus found something? What if he started looking into why you quit, found connections to his own clients, and someone noticed? Adrian's mind raced. Marcus was annoying, sure. Self-important and long-winded and obsessed with meaningless corporate jargon. But he wasn't stupid. If he'd started digging into Adrian's sudden resignation, if he'd connected it to the Cordova arrests. Have you told the FBI? Adrian asked. I don't know who to trust. If Cordova has people in law enforcement and agencies, then how do I know the FBI isn't compromised too? Agent Ross is clean. I'd stake my life on it. Would you stake Emma's life on it? The question hit like a physical blow. I'll call him, Adrian said. Give him your information. He'll look into Marcus's disappearance. Thank you. Robert Chen sounded close to tears. Please, Mr. Cole, my son has a daughter. She's 8. She keeps asking when Daddy's coming home. Adrian closed his eyes. I'll do what I can. He hung up and immediately called Ross. Marcus Chen is missing, he said without preamble. My old supervisor disappeared Friday night after trying to contact me about my resignation. Shit, Ross said. You think it's connected? His father thinks Marcus might have found something. The firm handles insurance for shipping companies, exactly the kind Cordova used as fronts. Double shit. More typing. I'll get someone on it. Check his movements, interview the wife, see if there's any evidence of foul play. His daughter is 8 years old. I know. I'll make it priority. They hung up. Adrian stood on the sidewalk with Captain Fluffy Boots, watching cars pass, seeing threats in every shadow. This was getting worse. Not better. Worse. At 3 o'clock, Megan texted. Picked up Emma. All good. Heading for ice cream. Adrian replied, take a roundabout route. Make sure you're not followed. Her response, way ahead of you. Already did 2 loops around the park. We're clear. He walked home quickly, every sense on alert. The unmarked sedan was still there. Different agents now. Shift change, probably. Inside, the house felt too quiet. Adrian moved through rooms he'd lived in for 3 years, seeing them differently now. Vulnerable. Too many windows, too many entry points. He checked every lock twice, drew curtains, set the security system Ross had arranged. Then he sat in the kitchen with Captain Fluffy Boots and waited. Megan and Emma arrived 40 minutes later, laughing about something. Emma had ice cream on her face and her hands, and somehow in her hair. "We had an adventure," she announced. "Megan let me get 3 scoops." "3 scoops is not an adventure," Adrian said, trying for normal. 3 scoops is a stomachache. "Is not. I feel great." She did look great, happy, safe, completely unaware that her father's former supervisor was missing, that lawyers were making threats, that the world she knew was balanced on a knife's edge. Adrian caught Megan's eye. She nodded toward the living room. "We need to talk." "Emma, why don't you and Captain Fluffy Boots go play in your room?" Adrian suggested. "I need to help Megan with something." "What?" "Adult stuff. Boring." Emma made a face but went upstairs, the dog trailing behind. In the living room, Megan closed the door. "We were followed," she said quietly. Adrian's stomach dropped. "You said you were clear." "I thought we were. But when I was getting Emma from school, there was a car." "Black sedan and tinted windows." "It stayed 3 cars back the whole way to the ice cream place. When we left, it was gone." "License plate?" "I tried. Couldn't get the angle." She looked miserable. "I'm sorry. I should have—" "You did everything right. You noticed, you lost them, you got Emma home safe." Adrian pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Ross." Ross answered on the first ring. "Tell me." Adrian relayed what Megan had described. "That's the 3rd report today," Ross said grimly. "Different targets, same pattern. They're doing surveillance, trying to establish routines, find vulnerabilities." "Who's they?" "Whoever Diana Reeves is working for. Maybe remnants of Cordova, maybe someone new. We're still sorting through the financial records, finding connections." Pause. "Mr. Cole, I really think you should consider relocation." "No." "Then consider private security. Someone with Emma at all times. She already has Megan and the dog. I mean professionals. Trained bodyguards." Adrian thought about Emma's face, her easy smile, the way she still thought the world was basically good. Thought about what it would do to her to have armed strangers following her everywhere. "No," he said again. "That's not childhood. That's prison. Prison keeps you alive. So does living in fear? No. We do this smart, we do it careful, but we don't turn Emma's life into a military operation." Ross sighed. "You're going to give me an ulcer. Add it to my tab." They disconnected. Megan was watching him. "He's right, you know," she said. "We might need more help." "We have help. We have the FBI watching the house. We have each other. We have a very large German shepherd." "Adrian, I know." He sat down heavily. "I know it's not enough, but I don't know what else to do. I can't wrap Emma in bubble wrap. I can't tell her that bad people want to hurt her because of something her mother did before she was born. She's 6, Megan, 6. I know. So we keep going. We stay alert. We trust Ross. And we hope that whatever Cordova's planning, they run out of time before they run out of options." Megan nodded slowly. "Okay, but the second I think Emma's in real danger, the second, Adrian, I'm taking her somewhere safe whether you agree or not." "Fair enough." That night, Adrian barely slept. He kept Vivian's letter in his nightstand now, reading it whenever the weight got too heavy. Her handwriting, her words, her trust in him that felt increasingly undeserved. "You're the best man I've ever known." He didn't feel like the best anything. He felt like a father desperately trying to protect his daughter from forces he couldn't control, couldn't even fully understand. Around 2 a.m., Captain Fluffy Boots started barking. Adrian was out of bed instantly, grabbing the baseball bat he'd started keeping by the door. He moved through the dark house, following the sound. The dog was at the front window, hackles raised, barking at something outside. Adrian peered through the curtains. A figure stood on the sidewalk across the street, just standing there, watching the house. Too dark to see details. Just a silhouette, backlit by the streetlight. Adrian reached for his phone to call Ross. The figure waved. Not threatening, almost friendly. Then they turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness between streetlights. Captain Fluffy Boots kept barking for another minute before settling down. Adrian called Ross anyway. "Someone was outside my house," he said, just standing there watching. "The agents in the sedan didn't report anything." "Where are they?" "North side of your property. If someone approached from the south," Ross swore. "I'm sending more units, tighter perimeter." "They're just going to keep coming, aren't they? Until they get what they want." "We're going to stop them first." "You keep saying that." "Because I mean it." Ross's voice hardened. "Cordova killed Vivian Sterling. They tried to kill you and Emma. They've made this personal, and I don't lose personal cases." Adrian wanted to believe him, wanted to believe the FBI was competent, that the system worked, that good guys won. But Vivian had believed that too, and she'd ended up dead in a car with cut brake lines. The next morning, Adrian kept Emma home from school. "Why?" she whined. "I have art class today." "You can do art here. We'll get supplies." "It's not the same." "I know, baby, but let's just have a home day today, okay? You, me, Megan, and Captain Fluffy Boots." She wasn't happy about it, but she didn't argue too much, and by noon she was contentedly drawing pictures of dogs with improbably large eyes while Megan made grilled cheese sandwiches. Adrian sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, pretending to work. Actually, he was watching the street through the window, counting the unmarked cars Ross had stationed nearby. 4 now. 2 sedans, a van, an SUV, rotating shifts, overlapping coverage. It should have made him feel safer. It didn't. His phone rang. Ross again. "We found Marcus Chen," the agent said. Adrian's chest tightened. "Alive?" "Alive. Confused. He turned up at a hospital in Gary, Indiana this morning. No memory of the last 3 days. Tox screen shows Rohypnol in his system." Someone drugged him? "And dumped him 2 states over. Classic intimidation tactic. Grab someone, scare them, let them go with a message." Ross paused. "Marcus is babbling about offshore accounts and shipping manifests. Says he found irregularities in his firm's client files. Started asking questions. And someone noticed. Yeah, we're interviewing him now, but he's pretty shaken. Keeps asking about his daughter, whether she's safe." Adrian looked at Emma, happily drawing, oblivious. "Tell him she is. Tell him to take his family somewhere quiet for a while." "Already suggested it. He's considering witness protection." "Good. Smart." They hung up. Adrian felt something cold settle in his stomach. Marcus Chen had just been asking questions, doing his job, and he'd been drugged and dumped like garbage. A warning, a demonstration of power. And if they do that to someone peripherally connected to the case, what would they do to Adrian? To Emma? The afternoon dragged. Emma finished her drawings, got bored, wanted to go outside. Adrian let her play in the backyard with Captain Fluffy Boots, watching from the kitchen window like a sniper. Megan made dinner. They ate as a family, something they'd been doing more often lately, like normalcy could be created through repetition. Emma talked about her drawings, her upcoming birthday in 2 months, the chapter book Megan had been reading to her about a girl who discovered magic. "She's brave," Emma said, "like me when I climbed through the tunnel." "You were very brave," Adrian agreed. "Will I have to be brave again?" The question hung in the air. "I hope not, baby," Adrian said carefully. "But if you do, I know you can." She nodded, satisfied, and went back to her pasta. At 8 o'clock, after Emma was in bed, Adrian's phone lit up with a new message. Unknown number. A photo. It showed Emma's school, the playground, taken from across the street through a telephoto lens, clear enough to see individual children playing. Below the photo, a message. Beautiful daughter. Would be a shame if something happened. Adrian stopped breathing. Another message. You have 48 hours to convince the FBI to suppress Vivian's evidence. After that, we stop being polite. Then a third. We know where she sleeps. We know her schedule. We know everything. Make the right choice, Mr. Cole. Adrian's hands were shaking so hard he almost dropped the phone. He forwarded the messages to Ross, then called him. They threatened Emma, Adrian said, voice barely under control. Direct threat, photos of her school, 48 hours. I'm coming over, Ross said immediately. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything. I'm 10 minutes out. What am I supposed to do? They know where she goes to school. They're watching her. You're supposed to trust me to handle this. Can you do that? Adrian looked toward the stairs where Emma was sleeping with Hoppy and Captain Fluffy Boots, safe for now in her bed with star projections on the ceiling. I don't know, Egg, he said honestly. I don't know if I can trust anyone anymore. Then trust Vivian. She trusted you to protect Emma. She trusted the evidence to bring these people down. Honor that trust. By using my daughter as bait? By refusing to let them win. Adrian closed his eyes. Thought about Vivian pregnant and alone, making impossible choices. Thought about her letter, her trust, her final act of love. Okay, he whispered. Okay. But Ross, if anything happens to her, it won't. I give you my word. Ross arrived 7 minutes later with 4 other agents. They swept the house, checked all entry points, set up additional cameras. While they worked, Ross sat with Adrian in the kitchen. We're moving up the timeline, he said. The grand jury was scheduled for next month, but we're pushing for next week. Once indictments are issued, protective orders go into effect. Anyone who approaches Emma or you gets arrested on sight. A week is a long time. I know, but it's the best we can do. Ross pulled out his tablet, showed Adrian a map. In the meantime, we're setting up a hard perimeter. 8 agents, 24-hour coverage. No one gets close to this house or Emma's school without us knowing. They got close enough to take that photo. That was before. This is now. We adapt. Ross's expression was granite. These people made a tactical error, Mr. Cole. They showed their hand. Now we know they're desperate enough to threaten a child, which means we can charge them with additional crimes when we catch them. When, not if. When, absolutely when. Adrian wanted to believe him, but belief required hope, and hope felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. The agents finished their sweep, set up a command post in the living room, stationed themselves at strategic points around the property. Adrian checked on Emma one last time. She was still asleep, completely peaceful, one small hand tucked under Hoppy's threadbare ear. He kissed her forehead, whispered, I love you, baby girl. I won't let anything happen to you. She didn't wake. Downstairs, Ross was putting on his coat. I have to go deal with the threat assessment, he said. But I'll be back tomorrow morning. Try to sleep, Mr. Cole. Not likely. Try anyway. Emma needs you sharp. Ross left. The house settled into an uneasy quiet, broken only by the soft footsteps of agents patrolling outside. Adrian sat at the kitchen table with Captain Fluffy Boots at his feet, Vivian's letter in his hands, and 48 hours ticking down. Somewhere out there, people who'd killed before were planning their next move. And Adrian Cole, boring risk analyst turned accidental target, had to figure out how to keep his daughter alive long enough for justice to catch up. The longest night of his life had been 3 weeks ago. He had a feeling it was about to get longer. 24 hours left. Adrian hadn't slept. Couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that photo. Emma's school playground, telephoto clarity, the implied threat in every pixel. So he'd stayed awake, watching security feeds on the tablet Ross had left, tracking the patrol routes of agents circling his house like sharks. Emma woke up at 6:30 asking why there were so many cars outside. Neighborhood meeting, Adrian lied, the words tasting like ash. Something about the water pipes. Oh. She accepted this completely, the way kids did when their world still made sense. Can I have waffles? Sure, baby, waffles. He made them from a box mix, burned the first 2, served her the third with too much syrup because he couldn't focus enough to measure. Emma didn't notice. She ate happily, telling Captain Fluffy Boots a story about a princess who lived in a waffle castle. Megan arrived at 7, took one look at Adrian's face, and immediately took over. You need to eat, she said, pushing him toward a chair. And shower. You look like you've been awake for a week. Just one night. Same effect. She started cracking eggs. Emma, sweetie, want to help me make Daddy some breakfast? Emma abandoned her waffles and climbed onto a stool, eager. While they worked together, Adrian stared at his phone, watching the deadline tick down. 47 hours, 12 minutes. His phone buzzed. Ross. We've identified the sender, the agent said without greeting. Burner phone, purchased with cash in Indianapolis 3 days ago. Used once for those messages, then destroyed. But we pulled surveillance from the store. Got a face. Who? Nobody. Professional, false ID, paid cash, disappeared into the wind. But the purchase timing tells us something. They were planning this threat before they made it. This isn't reactive, it's strategy. Adrian's stomach turned. What kind of strategy? Pressure campaign, make you panic, make you desperate, hope you convince the FBI to cave. Ross paused. It won't work. The evidence is already with the grand jury. Even if I wanted to suppress it, I couldn't. Did you tell them that? No. Better they think you still have influence. Keeps their focus on negotiation instead of direct action. Direct action, Adrian repeated flatly. You mean killing us? I mean we're not giving them any reason to escalate. Keys clicking. How's Emma this morning? Adrian looked at his daughter covered in flour, giggling while Megan let her stir eggs. She's good. Thinks the agents outside are here about water pipes. Keep it that way. Kids don't need to carry our problems. They disconnected. Adrian forced himself to shower, shave, put on clean clothes. When he came back downstairs, Emma had made him eggs that were somehow both runny and burnt. Daddy, I made these all by myself, she announced proudly. They're perfect, Adrian said, choking down a bite that tasted like rubber. Best eggs I've ever had. She beamed. The morning crawled. Adrian tried to work, gave up, tried to read, gave up. Megan took Emma into the backyard to play while he paced the house like a caged animal. Through the window, he watched his daughter throw a ball for Captain Fluffy Boots, watched the dog retrieve it with mechanical precision, watched Emma laugh with the kind of joy that came from not knowing the world wanted to hurt her. His phone rang again. Different number, but he recognized it now. Diana Reeves's pattern. Always a new burner, always one call, always perfectly calibrated words that meant everything and nothing. He answered. What? Mr. Cole. Not Diana this time. A man's voice, older, with the kind of authority that came from decades of getting exactly what he wanted. My name is Victor Castellanos. I believe it's time we spoke directly. Adrian's blood went cold. He knew that name. Everyone involved in the case knew it. Victor Castellanos, the suspected head of the Cordova network, the man Vivian's evidence implicated in orchestrating everything from money laundering to murder. The FBI had been hunting him for years, and now he was calling Adrian's phone. I have nothing to say to you, Adrian managed. Then listen. Castellanos' voice was calm, almost friendly. You're a father. I respect that. I have grandchildren myself. Beautiful kids, full of life. I understand what it means to want to protect your family. If you're I'm trying to offer you a way out of this situation that benefits everyone. The evidence you provided, it's problematic. Not insurmountable, but problematic. My legal team can fight it for years, decades even, but that's expensive and messy and hurts a lot of people who don't deserve it. People like you? People like the hundreds of employees at legitimate companies caught in the crossfire. People like Marcus Chen, who asked a few questions and ended up drugged in Indiana. People like your daughter's teachers who might notice if something unfortunate happened at her school. Adrian's hands clenched. You're threatening 6-year-olds now? I'm stating reality. You've placed yourself and Emma in the center of something that doesn't concern you. Vivian Sterling made her choices. She paid for them. But you? You're just a man who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Vivian trusted me with the truth. Vivian was brilliant and naive in equal measure. She thought exposing us would change something. It won't. The world runs on money and power, Mr. Cole. Justice is a story we tell children to help them sleep. Castellanos paused. Here's what I'm offering. You make a public statement saying you were coerced into providing the hard drive. Say the FBI pressured you, threatened you, manipulated your grief over Vivian's death. Our lawyers use that to suppress the evidence. In exchange, you and Emma receive $30 million, new identities, and complete protection. You disappear. We disappear. Everyone moves on. And if I refuse, then in 46 hours, you'll wish you hadn't. The line went dead. Adrian stood frozen in his kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, listening to silence. Megan came in from the backyard. Adrian? You okay? He called me. The words came out barely above a whisper. Castellanos called me directly. Her face went white. What did he say? Adrian told her. All of it. The offer, the threat, the The casual way Castellanos had talked about hurting children like it was weather. "We need to tell Ross," Megan said immediately. I know, Adrian sat down heavily. $30 million, Megan. New lives. Emma would be safe. You're not actually considering this. I don't know what I'm considering anymore. He looked at her. What if Ross can't protect us? What if the FBI builds their case and we spend the next year looking over our shoulders, waiting for someone to make good on these threats? Vivian trusted you to finish what she started. Vivian's dead. The words came out louder than intended. Adrian lowered his voice. She's dead, Megan. She made her choice and it got her killed. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe exposing Cordova isn't worth Emma growing up afraid. Or maybe, Megan said quietly, Emma grows up knowing her father stood for something. That when evil men offered him money to look the other way, he chose the harder path. The harder path gets people killed. So does the easy one, just slower. She was right. Adrian knew she was right, but knowing didn't make the choice any easier. He called Ross and played the recording. He'd started recording all unknown calls after Diana Reeves's first contact. Ross listened without interrupting. When it finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Castellanos doesn't make offers, he finally said. He doesn't negotiate. The fact that he called you personally means he's more desperate than we thought. Or more dangerous. Same thing, in his case. Desperate men make mistakes. More typing. I'm tracing this call. Even with a burner, we might get something. Cell tower pings, background noise, anything. He offered $30 million. He offered you blood money to obstruct justice, which, for the record, would make you an accessory after the fact to multiple felonies, including murder. I know, but I need you to understand that taking Castellanos' deal doesn't make you safe. It makes you complicit. And complicit witnesses who outlive their usefulness tend to have accidents. Adrian rubbed his face. So what do I do? You wait. The grand jury convenes tomorrow morning. By tomorrow afternoon, we'll have indictments. Once those are issued, the entire case becomes public record. Can't suppress it, can't negotiate it away. It's done. That's still 24 hours. 24 hours we use to keep you and Emma secure. I'm doubling the protective detail. No one gets within 100 yards of your house or her school without going through 6 federal agents. And if they try anyway, then they find out what happens when you threaten a child under FBI protection. The words should have been reassuring. They weren't. Adrian hung up and stood at the window, watching Emma play. She'd found a stick and was waving it around like a magic wand, casting spells on Captain Fluffy Boots. The dog sat patiently, pretending to be transformed into various animals at her command. Normal. It looked so devastatingly normal. Megan came up beside him. You should tell her something. Tell her what? That the man who killed her mother wants us dead? That we have one day to wait before we find out if the FBI can actually protect us? Tell her you love her. Tell her she's safe. Kids can handle honesty better than we think. She's 6. So was I when my father went to prison. Megan's voice went quiet. My mother lied about it. Said he was working overseas. I believed her for 2 years until a kid at school told me the truth. The lying hurt worse than the facts. Adrian looked at her. I didn't know that. Why would you? It's not exactly first interview material. She managed a sad smile. My point is, Emma's tougher than you think. Give her some truth. Not all of it, but enough. He thought about that while Emma turned Captain Fluffy Boots into a dragon, then a unicorn, then back into a dog who was very good at pretending. That afternoon, Adrian took Emma to the park. Ross had objected strenuously, leaving the house, going somewhere public, all the tactical disadvantages. But Adrian had insisted. If this was possibly their last normal day, he wanted it to actually be normal. They brought Captain Fluffy Boots, Megan, and 4 FBI agents in 2 unmarked cars who pretended very hard not to be watching them. Emma ran straight for the swings. Push me, Daddy! Push me high! Adrian pushed, higher and higher until she was shrieking with laughter, her dark curls flying. Hoppy clutched against her chest. I'm flying, she yelled. I'm a bird! I'm a dragon! I'm a flying unicorn dragon bird! That's a very specific species, Adrian called back. The rarest in the world. He pushed her until his arms ached, until she finally slowed down and dragged her feet in the wood chips. Daddy? She said, jumping off. Can we talk about something? Sure, baby. Anything. They sat on a bench while Captain Fluffyboots investigated nearby trees. Emma swung her legs, not quite reaching the ground, Hoppy in her lap. I know the snow monster was real, she said quietly. Adrian's stomach dropped. What? That night, when you said it was a game. It wasn't a game. Those were bad men, and you saved me. He didn't know what to say. How did you explain adult evil to a 6-year-old? Yeah, he finally admitted. They were bad men, but they're gone now. Are more coming? The question was so direct, so clear-eyed, that Adrian couldn't bring himself to lie. Maybe, he said. The police are working really hard to make sure no more bad men come. But sometimes protecting people takes time. Emma nodded slowly, processing. Is that why there are so many cars at our house? The water pipe thing was pretend, wasn't it? Yeah, it was pretend. Are the police protecting us? Yes. Good. She hugged Hoppy tighter. I like being protected. It feels safe. You are safe, sweetheart. I promise. I know. You promised me hot chocolate with rainbow marshmallows, and you kept that promise. So I know you keep promises. The simple faith in her voice nearly broke him. They stayed at the park for another hour. Emma played on the slide, the monkey bars, the spinning thing that made Adrian nauseous just watching. She collected interesting rocks and showed them to Captain Fluffyboots, who sniffed each one seriously. Normal. Almost normal. On the way home, Emma fell asleep in the car, head against the window, Hoppy under her chin. She knows more than we think, Megan said quietly from the passenger seat. Yeah. Adrian watched his daughter in the rearview mirror. She does. At home, he carried Emma inside, still sleeping. The house felt different now, not like home, but like a fortress. Agents at every entrance. Cameras in every room. The illusion of safety built from technology and manpower. He tucked Emma into bed even though it was only 7 p.m. She didn't wake, just curled around Hoppy and kept sleeping. Downstairs, Ross was waiting with a laptop and a grim expression. We've got a problem, he said. Of course they did. What now? Adrian asked. Judge Morrison, the one who signed our original search warrants, just recused himself from the case. Says he has a conflict of interest. Which means? Which means we need a new judge to approve the grand jury indictments. That takes time we don't have. And Morrison's replacement is Judge Patricia Whitmore, who has a reputation for being very, very thorough. Adrian sat down. How thorough? She once delayed a major racketeering case for 3 months while she reviewed every piece of evidence personally. She's brilliant and fair and completely unbribable, but she doesn't rush. We don't have 3 months. We don't have 3 days. I know. I'm pushing for an emergency hearing, but Whitmore doesn't do emergency unless someone's literally dying. Ross closed the laptop. We might not get indictments tomorrow. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. So Castellanos wins, Adrian said flatly. Castellanos delays. Different thing. Not from where I'm sitting. Ross stood, paced. There's another option. We go public now. Release Vivian's evidence to the media. Once it's out there, it doesn't matter what the courts do. The damage is done. Doesn't that compromise your case? Probably, but it keeps Emma safe. Castellanos can't threaten witnesses to suppress evidence that's already public knowledge. Adrian thought about it. Thought about Vivian spending 18 months carefully building an airtight case, only to have it dumped to reporters because the system moved too slowly. She'd hate that, he said. She'd hate you and Emma being dead more. Fair point. Give me until midnight, Adrian said. Let me think about it. You've got until 10 p.m. That's when the deadline expires, and Ross checked his watch. 15 hours. After that, I'm making the call whether you agree or not. He left. Adrian sat alone in his living room, surrounded by the evidence of his normal life. Emma's drawings on the fridge, Captain Fluffyboots' toys scattered across the floor, Megan's coffee mug from this morning still in the sink. Normal. He'd spent 6 years building normal, and now it was dissolving around him like snow in spring. Around 8 p.m., his phone rang. Another unknown number. Adrian almost didn't answer, but something, curiosity, defiance, exhaustion, made him pick up. What? He said. Mr. Cole. A woman's voice this time. unfamiliar. You don't know me, but I knew Vivian. Adrian sat up straighter. Who is this? My name is Sarah Kimura. I worked with Vivian at Sterling Global. I was her assistant for 3 years before she died. Why are you calling me? Because I know what she left you. I know about the hard drive, the evidence, all of it. I helped her gather some of it. Sarah's voice shook. And I know Castellanos is threatening you. How do you? Because he threatened me too. 4 years ago, right before Vivian died. He knew she was building a case. He knew I was helping her. He offered me money to sabotage her work. When I refused, he made it very clear what would happen to my family if I didn't cooperate. Adrian's chest tightened. What did you do? I ran, took my wife and daughter and disappeared, changed our names, moved to Canada, started over. Pause. I've been watching the news, saw the arrests, realized Vivian's evidence survived after all. And I hoped, maybe this time it would be different. Maybe this time the good guys would win. We're trying. I know, that's why I'm calling. To tell you don't give up. Don't let Castellanos scare you into suppressing that evidence. Her voice broke. Vivian died believing her work would matter. Died trusting you to make sure it did. Don't let her death be for nothing. I'm trying to protect my daughter. So was Vivian. That's why she gave Emma to you instead of keeping her. She knew the only way to really protect her was to destroy the people who'd use her as leverage. Sarah took a breath. You want Emma safe? Finish what Vivian started. Burn Cordova to the ground. That's the only safety that lasts. The line went dead. Adrian sat holding the phone, Sarah Kimura's words echoing in his head. He looked at the stairs leading to Emma's room. Thought about Vivian pregnant and alone, making impossible choices. Thought about Sarah Kimura running to Canada with her family. Thought about Marcus Chen drugged and dumped in Indiana as a warning. Thought about how many people Castellanos had hurt, would keep hurting, unless someone stopped him. He pulled out his laptop and started typing. By 9 p.m., he had a 3-page statement ready. Everything he knew about Vivian's investigation, about the hard drive, about the threats he'd received, names, dates, evidence, the whole story. He emailed it to Ross with the subject line, "If something happens to me, release this." Then he called the agent. "Don't release the evidence to the media," Adrian said when Ross answered. "Mr. Cole, let Whitmore take her time, build the case right, the way Vivian intended." Adrian looked toward the stairs again. "If Castellanos wants to come after us, let him try. We'll be ready." "That's a hell of a risk." "Yeah, it is. But running doesn't end this. Hiding doesn't end this. The only thing that ends this is putting Castellanos and everyone like him in prison where they belong." Ross was quiet for a moment. "Vivian chose well. Let's hope so." They hung up. Adrian checked the security feeds one more time, locked all the doors, set the alarm. Then he went upstairs to check on Emma. She was awake, sitting up in bed with Hoppy, Captain Fluffy Boots stretched across her feet. "Can't sleep?" Adrian asked. "I had a bad dream." He sat on the edge of her bed. "Want to talk about it?" The snow monster came back, but this time Captain Fluffy Boots scared him away. She petted the dog's head. "He's very brave." "He is. So are you." "Daddy?" Emma looked at him with Vivian's eyes. "Are you scared?" Adrian thought about lying, about protecting her from adult fears. But Megan's words came back. "Kids can handle honesty better than we think." "Yeah, baby," he said. "Sometimes I'm scared." "What do you do when you're scared?" "I remember all the people who are helping keep us safe. Agent Ross and Megan and Captain Fluffy Boots. And I remember that brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you are." Emma thought about this. "What's the right thing?" "Making sure the bad people can't hurt anyone else." "Oh," she nodded seriously. "That's good. I want to do that too when I'm bigger." "You're already doing it just by being brave." She smiled satisfied and lay back down. "Will you stay until I fall asleep?" "Of course." Adrian sat with her, watching her eyes get heavy, watching her breathing slow. Captain Fluffy Boots didn't move, keeping guard even in sleep. When Emma was finally out, Adrian stood carefully and moved to the door. "Daddy?" she murmured, half asleep. "Yeah, baby?" "I love you." "I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything." He went downstairs, poured himself a drink he didn't want, sat at the kitchen table with Vivian's letter. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Outside, FBI agents patrolled in the dark. Inside, his daughter slept peacefully, trusting him to keep her safe. 12 hours left until the deadline. Adrian didn't know if they'd make it. Didn't know if Judge Whitmore would approve the indictments in time. Didn't know if Ross's protective detail would hold against whatever Castellanos had planned. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He wasn't backing down, wasn't suppressing evidence, wasn't letting the people who'd killed Vivian walk free. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. His phone buzzed with a message from Ross. Whitmore agreed to emergency session. Grand jury 6 a.m. tomorrow. We're getting the indictments. Adrian read it 3 times, barely believing. They'd made it, almost made it. He went to bed fully clothed, phone on the nightstand, baseball bat within reach. Set 3 alarms. Told himself he'd sleep. He didn't. At 2 a.m., Captain Fluffy Boots started barking again. Adrian was up immediately, grabbing the bat, moving through the dark house. The dog was at the back door, hackles raised, growling at something outside. Through the window, Adrian saw them. 3 figures in the backyard, moving quickly, purposefully toward the house. He grabbed his phone, dialed Ross. They're here, he said. 3 of them, back entrance. Hold position, Ross snapped. Units are moving now. Adrian heard shouting outside. Flashlight beams cutting through darkness. Agents converging from their positions. The 3 figures scattered. 2 were caught immediately. The 3rd made it to the fence, started climbing. A warning shot cracked through the night. The figure fell back, hands up, surrendering. Adrian stood at the window, heart hammering, watching FBI agents swarm his backyard like an angry hive. Upstairs, Emma called out, "Daddy, what's happening?" "Just the police practicing, baby," he called back. "Go back to sleep." "Okay." Just like that. "Okay." Ross arrived 10 minutes later, grim-faced. "All 3 in custody," he said. They had bolt cutters, lock picks, and enough sedative to knock out an elephant. They were coming for Emma. Adrian couldn't speak, could barely breathe. "But we stopped them," Ross continued. "And here's the beautiful part. They're talking, giving up names, admitting who hired them, everything." Apparently Castellanos doesn't inspire much loyalty when you're facing federal kidnapping charges. Is it enough? It's more than enough. Conspiracy to kidnap, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation. We can add years to everyone involved. Ross actually smiled. Castellanos just made the stupidest mistake of his career. He went after a kid under federal protection. The courts won't go easy on that. Adrian sat down heavily. "It's over?" "The immediate threat, yeah. It's over. Whitmore will issue the indictments this morning. By noon, Castellanos and 43 others will be under arrest. No bail this time. No legal tricks. They're done." Just like that. Just like that. It didn't feel real. After weeks of fear, of threats, of sleepless nights, it just ended. "Get some rest," Ross said. "You've earned it. Emma too. Tomorrow you can start going back to normal." Normal. The word felt foreign. After Ross left, Adrian went upstairs one more time. Emma was asleep again, Hoppy clutched tight. Captain Fluffy Boots raised his head, tail thumping once against the bed. "Good boy," Adrian whispered. "Very good boy." He stood in the doorway watching his daughter breathe. They'd done it. Against all odds, against professional killers and corrupt lawyers and men with unlimited resources, they'd done it. Vivian's evidence would stand. The indictments would go through. Justice, delayed but not denied, would finally catch up. Adrian went to his room and actually slept. When he woke 4 hours later to his alarm, the sun was rising over Chicago. A new day, a safe day. He checked his phone. Message from Ross. All indictments issued. Arrests in progress. It's done. It was done. Adrian went to wake Emma for school and found her already awake, getting dressed, talking to Hoppy about what she'd learned in math yesterday. "Morning, Daddy," she said cheerfully. "Is it a school day?" "Yeah, baby, it's a school day." "Good, I like school days." Normal. She made it look so easy. They had breakfast together. Real breakfast. Not burnt eggs or boxes of cereal. Megan arrived and actually smiled when she saw them. "Ross called me," she said. "Told me everything. Are you okay?" "We're okay," Adrian said. And for the first time in weeks, He meant it. They walked Emma to school together, all three of them, plus Captain Fluffy Boots. No FBI tale this time. Just a family on a Tuesday morning, moving through the world like normal people. At the school entrance, Emma hugged Adrian tight. "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, sweetheart." She ran inside, backpack bouncing, Hoppy's ear sticking out of the front pocket. Adrian watched her go until she disappeared around a corner. "She's going to be okay," Megan said. "Yeah," Adrian agreed. "She really is." They walked home through streets that looked different now. Lighter, like the weight had been lifted. And somewhere across the city, in federal holding cells, the men who'd killed Vivian Sterling and threatened countless others were finally facing the consequences of their choices. Justice had taken 4 years. But it had arrived. The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken promises. Adrian sat in the gallery 3 months later, watching Victor Castellanos, the man who'd threatened his daughter, who'd ordered Vivian's murder, who'd built an empire on suffering, sit calmly at the defense table in a $15,000 suit like he was attending a stockholder meeting. Emma was at school. Megan had her. Normal Tuesday, normal routine, the kind of boring, beautiful, normal Adrian had fought for. But he'd needed to be here for this. Needed to see it through. Ross sat beside him, looking tired but satisfied. "Jury's been deliberating for 6 hours. That's a good sign." "How is that good?" "Means they're being thorough. Quick verdicts go either way, slam dunk guilty or reasonable doubt. Long deliberations mean they're working through the evidence properly." Vivian's evidence. Yeah. Every document, every transaction, every email she risked her life to preserve. Ross glanced at him. "She'd be proud, you know, of what you did, what you didn't do." "I didn't do anything, just refused to run." "That's more than most people. Castellanos has made stronger men disappear for less." The bailiff entered. "All rise." Everyone stood. Judge Patricia Whitmore entered, 60-something, steel gray hair, eyes that had seen every trick in the book and weren't impressed by any of them. She'd spent 3 months presiding over this trial with the kind of meticulous attention that had driven defense lawyers crazy and made prosecutors weep with gratitude. "I'm informed the jury has reached a verdict," she said. Adrian's heart kicked against his ribs. The jury filed in. 12 ordinary people who'd spent 3 months hearing about offshore accounts and shell companies and the deliberate, calculated evil that men like Castellanos inflicted on the world. They didn't look at the defendant. That was supposedly a tell, but Adrian didn't trust tells. He'd trusted tells before and been wrong. The foreperson stood, a black woman in her 50s, a high school teacher according to the jury selection notes Ross had shared. She held a piece of paper with steady hands. "Madam Foreperson," Judge Whitmore said, "has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." "On the charge of racketeering, how do you find?" "Guilty." Adrian exhaled. Didn't realize he'd been holding his breath. "On the charge of money laundering?" "Guilty." "On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Vivian Sterling?" The courtroom went silent. Castellanos didn't move, didn't react, just sat there like marble. "Guilty." The word hit like thunder. Judge Whitmore continued through 17 more counts. Guilty on all of them, every single charge. When it was over, Castellanos finally turned his head, not toward his lawyers or the jury, toward Adrian. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Castellanos smiled, just barely. A tiny acknowledgement that said, "You won this round, but the game's not over." Then the marshals were leading him away, and he disappeared through a side door that led to a holding cell and then to federal prison where he'd spend the rest of his life. Ross stood. 43 defendants, 39 convictions so far, 3 plea deals, 1 acquittal on a technicality. He shook Adrian's hand. "We did it, actually did it." "Vivian did it," Adrian corrected. "You both did." Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Cameras, microphones, questions shouted over each other. "Mr. Cole, how does it feel to see justice for Vivian Sterling? Did you ever doubt the evidence would hold up? What will you tell Emma about her mother's legacy?" Adrian kept walking, head down. Ross ran interference, his FBI credentials parting the crowd like a shield. They made it to Ross's car. drove away while cameras still flashed behind them. You could have made a statement, Ross said. People want to hear from you. People want a story, a hero narrative. I'm not that. Adrian stared out the window at Chicago rolling past. I'm just a guy who got handed an impossible situation and tried not to screw it up too badly. You're the guy who kept a 6-year-old safe while taking down one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the country. I'm the guy who got lucky. If you hadn't stationed agents at my house that night, if Emma hadn't fit through that coal chute, if Vivian hadn't been smart enough to hide the evidence where I'd eventually find it, any of that goes differently, and we're having a very different conversation. Ross was quiet for a moment. You know what Vivian wrote in her notes? The ones I mentioned before? What? She said you were the kind of person who'd always find a reason why success was luck and failure was personal responsibility. Said it was your most frustrating quality, and also why she trusted you completely. Ross smiled. She knew you'd never take credit for protecting Emma. You'd just do it because it needed doing. Adrian didn't know what to say to that. They drove in silence back to Lincoln Park. Ross dropped him at the house, the same house where this had all started, now repaired and reinforced and covered in security measures that hopefully they'd never need again. You going to be okay? Ross asked. Yeah, I think so. Good. Because I'm officially closing your case file. No more protective details, no more check-ins. You're free to go back to boring normal life. Can't wait. Ross drove off. Adrian stood on his front steps, looking at his house. Home. Just home now. Not a crime scene, not a fortress. Home. Inside, he made coffee and sat at the kitchen table where he'd read Vivian's letter for the first time, where he'd learned Emma was hers, where he'd decided not to run. His phone buzzed. Message from Megan. Emma wants to know if we can get pizza for dinner. I told her to ask you. Adrian smiled, texted back. Tell her yes. Extra cheese. Response. She says you're the best daddy in the world. Tell her she's the best daughter. She says she already knows that. Of course she did. Adrian finished his coffee and checked the time. 2 p.m. Emma would be home in an hour. Normal pickup, normal routine. Megan would probably let her talk about pizza for the entire car ride. He should work. Had freelance contracts piling up, reports to finish. But instead he found himself pulling out his laptop and opening a new document. He started writing, not a report, not an assessment, a letter. Dear Emma, by the time you read this, you'll be older, probably a teenager knowing my luck, which means you'll think you know everything and I know nothing. That's okay. All teenagers think that. I'm writing this because there are things you need to know about your mother, about where you came from, about why your life has been the way it's been. Her name was Vivian Sterling. She was brilliant and complicated and sometimes infuriating and one of the best people I've ever known. He wrote for 3 hours, told Emma everything, how he'd met Vivian, how they'd fallen in love and fallen apart, how she'd chosen him to raise the daughter she couldn't keep. He told her about the hard drive, the evidence, the trial, about Castellanos and Diana Reeves and the nightmen had broken into their home. He told her the truth, all of it, because someday she'd be old enough to handle it, and when that day came, Adrian wanted her to know that her mother had been a hero, that she'd died trying to make the world better, that her final act had been one of love. When he finished, it was 16 pages long. Too much for a 6-year-old. Perfect for a 16-year-old. Adrian saved it, backed it up in 3 different places, then put it in a folder he'd give Emma on her 16th birthday. Or maybe 18th. He'd figure it out. The front door opened. Emma's voice. Daddy, we're home. Megan says we can have pizza. Adrian closed the laptop and went to meet his daughter. She barreled into him like a small missile, backpack flying. Hoppy somehow already lost somewhere between the car and the front door. Can we get the kind with pepperoni shaped like stars? She demanded. I don't think that exists. Then we should invent it. That's not how pizza works. Why not? Because Adrian looked at Megan, who shrugged unhelpfully. You know what? I don't have a good answer. We'll call and ask. Emma's face lit up. Really? Really. Worst they can say is no. She ran off to find Hoppy, leaving Adrian and Megan in the hallway. Castellanos? Megan asked quietly. Guilty. All counts. Good. She set down her bag. You okay? Getting there. That's all anyone can ask. That night they had pizza, regular pepperoni, not star-shaped, but Emma forgave them after she got to pick the movie. They watched some animated thing about talking animals, and Adrian fell asleep halfway through, waking up to Emma poking his face. "Daddy, you missed the best part." "Sorry, baby. Tell me what happened." She recounted the entire plot in excruciating detail while Megan cleaned up and Captain Fluffy Boots stole pepperoni from the box. Normal. Beautifully, mundanely normal. Later, after Emma was in bed, Adrian stood in her doorway watching her sleep. She looked so much like Vivian in these quiet moments. The serious expression even in sleep, the way her hand curled around Hoppy's ear. "You'd be proud," Adrian whispered to a woman who couldn't hear him. "She's amazing, smart and brave and kind, everything you hoped she'd be." Emma didn't stir, just kept breathing, safe and whole. Adrian went downstairs and poured himself a drink. Sat at the kitchen table with Vivian's letter one last time. "Thank you for being exactly who you are. Thank you for trusting me," he said to the empty room. The weeks that followed settled into rhythm. Spring arrived properly, trees budding, tulips pushing through soil, the kind of gentle warmth that made Chicago winters feel like a distant memory. Emma finished first grade with perfect attendance and a certificate for most creative use of glitter in art class. She started soccer, decided she hated running but loved the orange slices at halftime. Captain Fluffy Boots grew another 3 inches and developed an alarming habit of stealing socks. Adrian took on more freelance work, built up his client list, started making enough money that he could think about buying instead of renting. Not because of Emma's trust fund, that was hers, untouchable until she was old enough to understand what it meant, but because he wanted to build something permanent. Megan got offered a job at a prestigious private school. Better pay, better benefits. She turned it down. "Why?" Adrian asked when she told him. "Because Emma needs consistency, and honestly, so do I." She smiled. "You're stuck with me, Cole. Deal with it." "I can live with that." Ross visited occasionally. Brought coffee, updates on the remaining trials, stories about the evidence Vivian had hidden that kept revealing new connections, new crimes, new justice. "We've dismantled 17 shell companies so far," he said during one visit. "Recovered almost $2 billion in laundered money, all because of her work." She'd be satisfied with that. "Satisfied?" Ross laughed. "She'd be furious it took us this long to connect the dots." Probably true. In June, Marcus Chen called. "Mr. Cole," he said, sounding hesitant. "I don't know if you remember me, but I remember. How are you, Marcus?" "Better. Therapy helps. My daughter's doing well, too." Pause. "I wanted to apologize for being such a dick about your resignation. I was angry about the wrong things. Water under the bridge. Still, I'm sorry, and I wanted to say thank you. What you did, testifying, providing evidence, all of it, you made the world safer for people like my daughter. That matters." They talked for 20 minutes. Marcus had left the firm, started consulting independently, was rebuilding his life piece by piece. He sounded genuine, changed. Trauma did that to people. Made them worse or better, no in between. In July, Emma turned 7. They threw a party, small, just kids from her class and their parents, pizza and cake, and entirely too much sugar. Emma wore a princess dress and a tiara and informed everyone that Captain Fluffy Boots was the party's official security. "Security from what?" one parent asked. "From boring," Emma said seriously. Adrian couldn't argue with that logic. When the guests left and Emma was crashed on the couch in a sugar coma, Megan nudged him. "You did good," she said. "She did the hard part. I just showed up." That's exactly what Vivian needed, someone who'd show up. Adrian thought about that while he cleaned up wrapping paper and stray balloons. About all the ways showing up mattered. About how Vivian had shown up for Emma in the only way she could, by making impossible choices that kept her daughter safe. That night, he added to the letter he'd been writing. Told Emma about her 7th birthday, about the party, about how she'd demanded that everyone sing Happy Birthday to Captain Fluffy Boots, too, because it's not fair if only I get a song. He was building her a record, a story she could read someday about who she'd been and where she'd come from and all the love that had gone into protecting her. In August, Sarah Kimura called. "Mr. Cole, I hope you don't mind me reaching out again. Not at all. How are you? Good. Great, actually. We moved back to the States. Felt safe enough after the convictions. Her voice brightened. My daughter starts high school next month. She's excited. Nervous, but excited. That's wonderful. I wanted to thank you for not giving up, for seeing it through. She paused. Vivian would have been so proud. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. She saw something in you that you probably still don't see in yourself, but the rest of us see it clearly. After they hung up, Adrian stood at the window watching Emma and Captain Fluffyboots play in the backyard. She was trying to teach the dog to jump through a hula hoop with limited success but maximum enthusiasm. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe Vivian had seen something in him. Or maybe she just made the best choice she could with limited options and gotten lucky. Either way, it had worked. September brought new routines. Emma started second grade with a new teacher who didn't appreciate creative glitter use quite as much as the first grade teacher had. She made new friends, joined the school book club, announced she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. Last week you wanted to be an astronaut, Adrian pointed out. I can be both. An astronaut veterinarian. For space dogs. That's very specific. I like being specific. She did. Got that from Vivian, too. In October, the final verdict came down. Diana Reeves, the lawyer who'd threatened Adrian over the phone, was disbarred and sentenced to 8 years for obstruction of justice and witness intimidation. She maintained her innocence throughout, but the recorded calls, Adrian's recordings, had been damning. That's everyone, Ross said when he called with the news. Every major player in the Cordova network is either in prison or awaiting sentencing. It's done. Finally. Finally. Ross sounded tired but satisfied. You should celebrate. I celebrate by not thinking about it anymore. Fair enough. But Adrian did celebrate in his own way. He took Emma to the zoo, let her spend too much time at the penguin exhibit, bought her an overpriced stuffed penguin she named Dr. Waddles. Normal. They'd earned normal. November brought the first snow. Emma stood at the window watching it fall, Captain Fluffyboots beside her, both of them mesmerized. Remember the big snow? She asked. When we had to hide from the snow monster? Adrian's chest tightened. I remember. I was really scared. I know, baby. But you kept me safe. She turned to look at him. You always keep me safe. I try. You don't just try, you do. She said it with complete certainty, the kind only children possessed. That night, Adrian added to the letter again, told Emma about this moment, about her faith in him, about how much harder he'd work every day to deserve it. December arrived. The house got decorated with lights and a tree that Emma insisted needed to be the biggest one ever. Captain Fluffyboots immediately tried to eat several ornaments. They baked cookies. Well, Megan baked while Adrian and Emma helped by eating most of the dough and making a mess. They watched holiday movies and built a gingerbread house that collapsed spectacularly. On Christmas morning, Emma woke up at 5 a.m. and dragged Adrian downstairs to see what Santa had brought. Daddy, look! He got Captain Fluffyboots a present, too. Santa's very thorough. She tore through presents with the kind of focused intensity she brought to everything. Books and art supplies and a telescope because she was back to wanting to be an astronaut. When she found the last gift, a small box wrapped in silver paper, she looked confused. What's this? Open it and see. Inside was a silver necklace, simple, delicate, with a small pendant shaped like a star. It's beautiful, Emma breathed. It belonged to your mother, Adrian said quietly. I've been keeping it safe for you. Thought you were old enough now. Emma's eyes went wide. My real mother? The one who died? Yeah, baby. Her name was Vivian. Vivian, Emma repeated carefully, like testing the word. Did she love me? More than anything in the world. Then why did she give me away? Adrian had known this question would come eventually, had been preparing for it since the night he'd learned the truth. Because loving someone sometimes means making really hard choices to keep them safe, he said. Your mother was in danger. Bad people wanted to hurt her, and she knew the only way to keep you safe was to give you to someone she trusted completely. You. Me. Emma thought about this, turning the necklace over in her small hands. She picked good. Adrian's throat closed up. I think so too. Can you help me put it on? He clasped the necklace around her neck. The star pendant settled against her chest, catching the light from the Christmas tree. Emma ran to the mirror, admiring it. I look like a princess. You look like yourself, which is better. She hugged him tight. Thanks, Daddy. This is the best present ever. You're welcome, baby. Later, after Emma had crashed from her sugar high and was napping on the couch with Captain Fluffy Boots and Dr. Waddles, Megan found Adrian in the kitchen. You told her about Vivian. Just a little, age-appropriate version. How'd she take it? Better than I expected. Asked good questions. Seemed satisfied with the answers. Adrian stared at his coffee. I'll tell her more as she gets older. When she's ready. She'll be ready when you're ready, Megan said gently. Maybe. The year ended quietly. New Year's Eve was just the three of them, 4 counting Captain Fluffy Boots, eating takeout and watching the ball drop on TV. Emma made it until 10 p.m. before falling asleep. Adrian carried her to bed, tucked her in with Hoppy and Dr. Waddles. Happy New Year, baby, he whispered. Downstairs, Megan had opened a bottle of wine. To surviving, she said, raising her glass. To more than surviving, Adrian countered. To actually living. They drank. Outside, fireworks started somewhere in the distance. Celebration. Hope. The promise of fresh starts. Inside, everything was warm and safe and exactly where it needed to be. January brought new snow, new routines, new normal. Adrian started writing more, not just client reports, but essays, articles about risk assessment and decision-making under pressure. One publication picked up his piece about the hidden cost of safety theater. Another wanted his perspective on corporate whistleblowing. He wasn't trying to build a platform, wasn't trying to become some kind of expert, but apparently surviving what he'd survived made people want to hear what he had to say. Emma thrived. Second grade suited her. She discovered a love of reading that rivaled her love of glitter, came home every day with new facts about penguins or space or the digestive system of earthworms. Did you know worms have 5 hearts? She announced one evening. I did not. 5, that's more than we have. Worms are basically superheroes. Captain Fluffy Boots, who'd been trying to eat a worm earlier, looked slightly guilty. In February, Adrian got an email from an address he didn't recognize. Subject line, thank you from someone you saved. He almost deleted it as spam. Instead, he opened it. Mr. Cole, you don't know me, but I worked for a shipping company that was secretly owned by Cordova. When the indictments came down, the company collapsed. I lost my job. So did 60 other people. At first I was angry. Thought you and the FBI had destroyed something that didn't deserve it. But then I learned what Cordova was really doing. The drugs they moved, the money they laundered, the people they hurt. My company was helping them. I was helping them. Without knowing it, but still. So I wanted to say thank you for being brave enough to blow the whistle, for caring more about what was right than what was easy. I found a new job, better company, clean business. My life is better now. Harder, but better. You saved more people than you know. A grateful stranger. Adrian read it 3 times, then forwarded it to Ross. The agent called 5 minutes later. You okay? Yeah, it's a lot. You made a difference, Adrian. Real, measurable difference. Vivian made a difference. Together you took down something that was poisoning the world. I just didn't want Emma to get hurt. And in protecting her, you protected thousands of other kids, families, people who'll never know how close they came to being victims. Ross paused. That's the thing about doing the right thing. The impact spreads farther than you can see. After they hung up, Adrian saved the email in a folder with Vivian's letter and the trial transcripts and Emma's birth certificate. Evidence. Not of crimes, but of why it all mattered. March brought Emma's 8th birthday planning. I want a space party, she declared, with stars and planets and astronaut ice cream. Astronaut ice cream tastes like cardboard. How do you know? I tried it once. Then we'll get the good ice cream and just pretend it's from space. That works. The party was chaotic and perfect. 20 kids running around pretending to be astronauts. Captain Fluffy Boots wearing a ridiculous silver cape, Megan managing everything with the efficiency of a NASA mission controller. Emma blew out her candles and made a wish she wouldn't tell anyone. If you tell, it won't come true, she said seriously. That's the rule, Adrian agreed. Later, when everyone had gone home and Emma was organizing her new books, she turned to Adrian. Daddy, can I ask you something about my mom? His heart rate kicked up. Of course. Did she like space? The question caught him off guard. Yeah, actually, she did. She used to say space was the ultimate risk assessment problem. So many variables, so much uncertainty. Emma nodded, satisfied. I think that's where I got it from. Liking space. Probably. Good. I like having things from her. She touched the star necklace she wore every day now. Makes me feel like I knew her even though I didn't. She knew you, baby. Before you were born, she knew you'd be special. How? Because she was your mom. Moms know things. Emma thought about that, then went back to her books. Adrian added to the letter that night. Told Emma about this conversation, about her certainty that her mother would have understood her love of space. She would have, he wrote. Vivian would have understood everything about you, and she would have loved you so much. April brought spring properly. The park near their house exploded with green, flowers blooming everywhere. Emma insisted on bringing Captain Fluffy Boots to run in the open field, throwing balls until her arm got tired. Adrian watched her play, this 7-year-old miracle who'd survived so much and come through it curious and kind. Vivian had done that. Vivian had made the impossible choices that had given Emma this life. Thank you, Adrian said quietly to the sky, to wherever Vivian was, if anywhere. A breeze moved through the trees, nothing mystical, nothing profound, just wind, but it felt like enough. That evening, sitting at the kitchen table with Megan after Emma was in bed, Adrian pulled out his laptop. What are you working on? Megan asked. The letter, for Emma. Final version. You're finishing it? Yeah, feels like time. He wrote the ending he'd been building toward for months. Emma, by the time you read this, you'll know everything. The good, the bad, the complicated truth about where you came from and what your mother did to protect you. You'll probably have questions I can't answer. You'll probably be angry about things I can't fix. That's okay. You're allowed to feel however you feel. But I want you to know this. Every choice your mother made was an act of love. Every sacrifice was for you. And every day I've had the privilege of being. Your father has been the greatest gift of my life. You are brilliant and brave and kind. You get that from her. You get that from yourself. You get that from everyone who's loved you. And you are so, so loved. I hope you use your mother's trust fund to do something amazing. I hope you become an astronaut or a veterinarian or whatever wild thing you dream up next. I hope you live a life so full and bright that it honors everything Vivian gave up to make it possible. But mostly, I hope you know that you were worth it. Every risk, every sacrifice, every impossible choice, you were worth it. I love you, Emma. Always. Dad. He saved it, backed it up, set a reminder for her 16th birthday. Then he closed the laptop and looked at Megan. It's done, he said. How do you feel? Like I can finally breathe. She raised her wine glass. To breathing, to breathing. They sat in comfortable silence while the house settled around them. Upstairs, Emma slept peacefully. Outside, Chicago hummed with its usual chaos. Inside, everything was exactly as it should be. The months that followed were gloriously boring. Emma did homework and played soccer and argued about bedtime. Adrian took freelance jobs and paid bills and fixed the garbage disposal when it broke. Megan became family in the way that mattered, not blood, but choice. In June, Ross called one last time. Final sentencing just came through, he said. Castellanos got life without parole, 42 years minimum. He'll die in prison. Good. Thought you'd want to know. Close the book completely. Thanks, Ross, for everything. Thank you for trusting the system even when it didn't deserve it. They hung up. Adrian felt something release in his chest. Done. Truly, finally done. That weekend, he took Emma to the beach. Lake Michigan was warm enough to wade in, and she spent hours collecting rocks and building sandcastles with Captain Fluffy Boots' help. Daddy, look! She held up a smooth piece of blue glass. It's a treasure. It's beautiful. I'm going to keep it forever. She probably would. Emma kept everything. every special rock, every birthday card, every memory. Got that from both her parents. They stayed until sunset, watching the sky turn orange and pink over the water. "Daddy?" Emma said quietly. "Yeah, baby?" "I'm happy." 3 simple words that meant everything. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." They drove home through the city as lights came on across Chicago. Home to their house that had seen violence and fear but had survived. Home to safety and routine and the beautiful, boring normal they'd fought for. That night, Adrian stood in Emma's doorway watching her sleep one more time. She was getting bigger, not a baby anymore. Not even really a little kid. Growing up fast, becoming her own person. But she was still his daughter, still the miracle Vivian had trusted him to protect. "We did it," he whispered. "She's safe. She's happy. We did it." Outside, spring was turning into summer. Inside, everything was warm and whole. Adrian closed Emma's door gently and went downstairs to his own bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems, the everyday difficulties of raising a kid. But they were normal problems. Human problems. Not the kind that came with death threats and federal cases. Just life. Beautiful, messy, ordinary life. And that was more than enough. Adrian Cole fell asleep in his own bed, in his own house, in a city that had nearly broken him, but hadn't. Emma Sterling Cole slept upstairs with her stuffed animals and her mother's necklace and dreams about space. Megan slept in the guest room that had become hers over the months, part of a family she'd chosen and been chosen by. Captain Fluffy Boots slept across Emma's feet, vigilant even in dreams. And somewhere, in whatever came after, maybe Vivian Sterling rested easier knowing her daughter was safe, loved, and growing up exactly as she'd hoped. The storm had passed. The family remained. And that, in the end, was everything.